Chapter 649. The temple was in a mess. These nascent soul cultivators had never seen such a chaotic situation in their lives. More than half of the nascent soul cultivators in Yunzhong were here. Mo Tiange was even more shocked. In the celestial pole, there were 70 to 80% of them. Even Kuanzhong City didn't have so many nascent soul cultivators at the same time. The space was narrow, but there were many cultivators. Spells, magic weapons, talismans, and secret techniques were flying everywhere. It was as chaotic as a fight between mortals. Mo Tiange believed that if this place wasn't the five-spirit sacrificial temple but an ordinary building, it would have been shaken and the mountains would have collapsed. As soon as they came out, they were attacked from all sides. Fortunately, the situation was too chaotic. Even if they attacked from all sides, they couldn't do it. Take this chance to run. Qin, she said. Everyone nodded to show they understood. Ling Yunhe would be taken away by Julian's sect, but they wouldn't. Taking advantage of the chaos, they should run as soon as possible. They shouldn't wait for Julian's sect to save them. *******. 6 people stood beside the cracked canyon. They were Demon Master Moon Shadow, Old Donkey Ma, Nanguatian, Daoist Rui, Han Shizhi, and the new nascent soul cultivator surnamed Yen from Five Elements Valley. All of them were silent as if they were waiting for something. Not long after, a few figures flew over and quickly flew in front of them. Teacher. Han Shizhi bowed to greet him with a happy expression. Scholar Yu smiled gently and raised the folding fan in his hand. Shizhi, you've worked hard. I don't dare. This is what a student should do. Han Shizhi was arrogant, but he was respectful and humble in front of his teacher. Scholar Yu nodded with a smile and turned to look at Demon Master Moon Shadow. Fellow Daoist Moon Shadow, are you ready? Demon Master Moon Shadow was indifferent. Of course. What about you? Scholar Yu said, Yuan Mu and the others have entered. We can start now. He then sighed. Unfortunately, Old Gua and Miaoying didn't take the bait. Otherwise, it's enough to kill Yuan Mu, Demon Master Moon Shadow said coldly. The Moon Shadow Demon Lord said coldly, once Yuan Mu dies, Tai Mian will pass away. Without a late nascent cultivator to hold the fort, the conflict in the Julian sect will intensify. If they use some tricks, it is not impossible for them to fall apart. At that time, the number one sect in Yunzhong will disappear, and the power of the Dao sects will be greatly reduced. That will be the time for the demonic and Confucian sects to rise. What about Yi Shuang? Scholar Yu asked. Are you sure she won't be a stumbling block for you? Humph. At the mention of Demon Lord Night Frost, Demon Lord Moon Shadow's expression turned ugly. If that old monk Su Xiang had not interfered, how could Night Frost have escaped so easily? Scholar Yu narrowed his eyes. Does this mean that Yi Shuang already knows? The Moon Shadow Demon Master nodded reluctantly. However, they can't escape either. Ha! Old Donkey Ma grinned from the side. Daoist Yuing, why think so much? Even if they ran out, what could they do? Don't tell me you're afraid of them. The Moon Shadow Demon Master looked at him coldly. Old Donkey Ma, you don't have to fan the flames. That old monk Su Xiang has always disliked you. If he wants to seek revenge, you won't be able to escape. Old Donkey Ma blinked his small eyes and said, Daoist, you've really misunderstood me. This old man's lifespan is running out. Why would I want to get involved in these things? I just want to live a peaceful and stable life. That's enough. The Moon Shadow Demon Master snorted again. She did not believe him at all. Old Donkey Ma's lifespan was indeed running out. He was a cultivator of the same generation as the Guifang Demon Lord. Among the late nascent cultivators in Yunzhong, he was the oldest. However, this old man relied on his itinerant cultivator status to enter the ranks of the late nascent realm. His fated chances were top-notch. It was said that he had consumed a life-prolonging spirit fruit in the past 400 to 500 years. Compared to the lifespan of a late nascent realm cultivator, it was not a lot, but it was not considered little either. Moreover, this old man had always been mysterious. Who knew if he, who looked like he had one foot in the grave, could hold on until they were all dead? Fellow Taoist Moon Shadow, can we start now? Scholar, you urged. The Moon Shadow Demon Master nodded. Let's start. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. In the sacrificial temple, the scene became more and more chaotic. The place was too small, and the fight between nascent soul cultivators was noisy. With so many people, it was inevitable that innocent people would be hurt. Apart from their fellow disciples and a few good friends, most of them were in a relationship of mutual benefit. Most of them had experience fighting over treasures. When they were hurt by other people's spells, they were not sure if it was accidental or intentional, so it was inevitable that they would fight back. Because of this, the battlefield was quickly expanded. Compared to the others, Mo Tianga's group advanced and retreated in an orderly manner. 6 people and 1 beast, they attacked and defended together without any disorder. Mo Tianga had already put away the puppet. The place was narrow, so the few of them were enough to form a defense system. They fought and walked at the same time. Finally, they saw the group of people from Jiuyan's sect pushing their way into the main hall. Jiuyan's sect also walked very steadily. They did not have many people, but under the leadership of Master Daoist Yuanmu, they were orderly. Master Daoist Yuanmu's eyes flashed when he saw them. The next moment, he shouted, "Yunhe, you guys come here." He said, "You guys, not you." The corners of Mo Tianga's lips curled up into a smile as she met Qin Shi's gaze. Master Daoist Yuanmu was indeed a smart person. He obviously hated them very much, but he could still temporarily let go of his hatred and choose to cooperate with them. "Yes, Martial Uncle Yuanmu," Ling Yunhe answered. Then he gave Mo Tianga a look and looked at the exit. Mo Tianga pondered for a moment and understood what he meant. He was telling them not to delay and to leave quickly. She smiled gratefully. In any case, Ling Yunhe's behavior was worthy of being called a friend. Right at that moment, a cold and gloomy aura spread, making people's hair stand on end. The cultivator near the entrance of the sacrificial temple looked back and instantly turned pale with fright. Ghost cultivators. Ghost cultivators. As he shouted, the cold and gloomy aura became stronger. All the nascent soul cultivators released their divine senses and found that a large number of ghost cultivators appeared outside, rushing towards the sacrificial temple. They were all brought here by Devil Lord Yuing, so they had never seen that ravine and didn't know there were so many ghost cultivators here. Now that they suddenly saw them, they were shocked beyond words. There were also ghost cultivators in Yunzhong, but they had all left the human world, so their numbers were also very few. However, the ghost cultivators outside numbered in the tens of thousands, and those in the nascent soul realm and above numbered in the hundreds. They were too shocked. There were actually so many ghost cultivators in Yunzhong. For a moment, everyone stopped. Master Daoist Yuanmu also stopped. He turned around and saw that the group of people from Yu Mountain Academy had disappeared, including Nanguatian, Daoist Rui, and the cultivator surnamed Yan from 5 Elements Valley who came to help. A thought suddenly flashed in his mind, and he blurted out, "Not good." Big Beard asked, "Senior Martial Brother Yuanmu, what's wrong?" Master Daoist Yuanmu took a deep breath and said, "We've been tricked." Everyone from Jiuyan's sect and the other cultivators who heard this were all stunned. Master Daoist Yuanmu raised his voice and said, "Everyone, whether you believe it or not, I'm afraid we've been tricked by someone." Right after he finished speaking, a cultivator who had some friendship with Julian's sect asked, "Fellow Daoist Yuanmu, what do you mean?" Master Daoist Yuanmu's gaze was like lightning. He turned to look at the entrance and said, "Everyone, why don't you think about it? Why did we come here? Who's missing here?" The cultivators pondered upon hearing what he said. Ling Yunhe was the first to react. Demon Monarch Yuing. Master Daoist Yuanmu looked at him with admiration in his eyes. He thought to himself, this brat's intelligence is extraordinary, but unfortunately, he doesn't always do things as he wishes. After Master Daoist Yuanmu mentioned it, Mo Tiange was stunned for a moment before she suddenly realized something. "I see." Nia Wusheng turned to ask, "What?" Mo Tiange said, "There's no hurry to snatch the primordial devil art. Why not wait until you're alone?" He acted so impatient and called these people to mess up the situation. "I'm afraid it's not as simple as snatching the cultivation technique." Master Daoist Yuanmu's gaze fell on her. "Right now, half of the nascent soul cultivators in Yunzhong are here. Demon Monarch Yuing, Old Donkey Ma, and the others have already left. They're obviously determined to let these ghost cultivators trap us until we die." With the existence of the sacrificial temple, these ghost cultivators didn't dare to enter. At the same time, with so many ghost cultivators here, it would be very difficult for them to kill their way out. This was different from when they crossed the canyon. At that time, there weren't many ghost cultivators who discovered them. But now, someone deliberately lured all the ghost cultivators here. Also, Master Daoist Yuanmu said, "You Mountain Academy, Nanguatian, and Daoist Rui." As soon as he finished speaking, there was a sudden commotion in the sacrificial temple. If there were only Demon Monarch Yuing and Old Donkey Ma, they were only two people. Old Donkey Ma was an individual cultivator, and Demon Monarch Yuing only had Moon Shadow City as his subordinates. Based on the way devil cultivators existed, Moon Shadow City didn't have other nascent soul cultivators. But if you Mountain Academy, Nanguatian, and Daoist Rui were added, their numbers would be different. You Mountain Academy, Dawning Dansha Sect, 5 Elements Valley. Altogether, they had almost 20 nascent soul cultivators. If they were really trapped here, these three groups plus Demon Monarch Yuing and Old Donkey Ma would be half of the cultivation world's power in Yunzhong. "Why did they do this?" someone shouted. "What's in it for them to trap us to death?" Master Daoist Yuanmu smiled bitterly. One Leaf Island disappeared and North Pole Island declined. "Do you still need to tell me why?" With the decrease in resources, there would be turmoil in Yunzhong sooner or later. It's just that I didn't expect the turmoil to come so soon, and these people were so ruthless. Making a move against half of the nascent soul cultivators in Yunzhong. These people were really generous. It was their fault for not knowing their surroundings well enough to know there were so many ghost cultivators here. At this thought, Master Daoist Yuanmu's gaze towards Mo Tiange was filled with dense killing intent. If it weren't for the change in heaven and earth, One Leaf Island wouldn't have disappeared and North Pole Island wouldn't have declined. The change in heaven and earth was definitely related to this junior. "Yunhe," Master Daoist Yuanmu said calmly, "come here." Sensing Master Daoist Yuanmu's killing intent, Yunhe hesitated. "What? Do you really want to betray Julian's sect?" Master Daoist Yuanmu stared at him with a heavy gaze. "You have a grudge against the sect, so it doesn't matter if you travel with them. But if you don't come here now, you're betraying the sect." Senior Martial Brother Yuanmu. The bearded man cried out involuntarily. "Junior Martial Brother Ling is just..." Master Daoist Yuanmu glared at him fiercely, then looked at Yunhe. "Yunhe, come here. Don't mention what happened in the past. You're still a disciple of Julian's sect. If you're good enough, Julian's sect will still be handed over to you in the future. But if you don't come here..." Yunhe suddenly sighed and asked, "Martial Uncle Yuanmu, do you want their lives? Without waiting for Master Daoist Yuanmu to answer, he continued, I don't know if you still remember what I said about them. Master Daoist Yuanmu's gaze froze. He seemed to remember something. Martial Uncle Yuanmu, I won't betray Julian's sect, but please forgive me for not listening to you. Yunhe looked calm and said indifferently, if I let you kill them, I'll regret it for the rest of my life. Yunhe. Master Daoist Yuanmu couldn't control himself anymore and shouted fiercely. Yunhe didn't answer. He just said in a low voice, go back. Chapter 650. As soon as Ling Yunhe finished speaking, the 6 people and 1 beast immediately retreated before the others could react. The main hall. Qin, she said. They were some distance away from the square behind them, but the main hall was right next to them. But Wushang. Mo Tiange said worriedly. The aura of divine beasts in the main hall was very strong. Nia Wushang and Yang Qingji, we're fine. Nia Wushang immediately interrupted her. They no longer hesitated and flashed into the main hall next to them. Qin Shi waved his sleeve, and the stone door of the main hall was about to close. At this time, Master Daoist Yuanmu's exquisite pagoda arrived. The originally small and exquisite pagoda suddenly became big and smashed towards them. Jing Xingji's movements were also fast. The white tiger formed in the sword light and collided with the exquisite pagoda with a loud bang. The stone door was closed. Without hesitation, Ling Yunhe released the flying boat. Get on. They were well aware that the stone door would be broken soon and wouldn't be delayed for long. When they boarded the flying boat, the stone door was heavily hit and then opened. Come here. Mo Tiange said quickly, I'll take you to a space crack. Don't resist. When everyone nodded, she motioned for them to stand beside her. She put her hands together and touched the space between her eyebrows to call out the bead. At this time, the spell had already hit the ship. Mo Tiange looked indifferently at Master Daoist Yuanmu and the others outside the ship. She held their hands, and a white light lit up, taking them into the virtual sky world. Without its master, the flying boat was quickly opened, and the inside was empty. Master Daoist Yuanmu frowned. Where did it go? But no matter how they looked, even if they dismantled the flying boat, they couldn't find any trace. The white light around them dispersed, and they opened their eyes. The place they were in was a bamboo forest. There were a few bamboo houses in the forest, and the spiritual energy was abundant. Outside the forest was a vast expanse of white fog, blocking their vision. This is... Nia Wushang was slightly stunned. Why did she feel it was familiar? A space crack, Mo Tiange said, I got the key by accident. Jing Xingji glanced around and muttered, such a strong spiritual aura. It should be formed in the distant past era, right? Probably, Mo Tiange said tiredly, we'll have to hide here for a while. You guys can do as you please. She then returned to her own cultivation room. Qin Shi also followed her inside as if he was very familiar with her. Xiao Feng revealed her true form and returned to her nest in the depths of the bamboo forest. Fei Fei came out to greet them, then went back inside. Lil Fan and Xiaohua, well, they were cultivating. Xiaohua had been working very hard recently. Xiao Feng had been providing it with the vermilion bird's breath, and it was time for it to break through to the 8th level. Lil Fan was absorbing the breath of the Xian Wu. The others hesitated for a moment before following him into the cultivation room. Mo Tiange raised her eyebrows when she saw the 4 people standing in a row in front of her. She then took out 4 praying mats and threw them to them. Sit. The 4 of them sat down and stared at each other for a while. It was still Nia Wushang who broke the silence first. Have I been here before? Yeah. Back then, when we were chased by Mei Feng, we also hid here. But you were unconscious, so you didn't know. No wonder it's a bit familiar. Nia Wushang looked around and commented, it's really a good place. It's quiet after being chased. Yang Qingji asked, if we hide here, will we still be in the same place when we go out? Mo Tiange nodded. If the spaceship is destroyed, will it affect us? No, unless the space is torn apart, which might affect us a bit. Ling Yunhe looked around and said, it's such a pity that we don't plant spiritual plants in a place with such rich spiritual aura. Mo Tiange didn't say anything. She couldn't tell Ling Yunhe that there were actually a lot of spiritual plants, she just cut them off. Ahem. Qin Shi cleared his throat and asked, fellow Daoist Ling, can you still go back to Juyin sect if you do this? Hearing those words, Ling Yunhe grew silent. Yes, fellow Daoist Ling, if you leave like this, will Ling clan be in trouble? Mo Tiange also asked. Ling Yunhe heaved a long sigh and said, if I don't do this, should I just watch you get killed? We won't necessarily be killed, Jing Xingji said with a sneer. There are only 5 people in Juyin sect. Although Master Daoist Yuanmu's cultivation level is in the late nascent stage, his old injuries haven't healed yet. Ling Yunhe shook his head gently. What about the others? From a certain point of view, today's events are related to you, Mo, Qin, and Yang. After your heavenly tribulation, the world changed and the continent shifted, which led to a shortage of resources in Yunzhong and led to today's events. Martial Uncle Yuanmu definitely has a way to stir up everyone's emotions and make you the target of everyone. We're already very tired, and we're completely relying on medicinal pills to support ourselves. If we're besieged again, can we still hold on? Jing Xingji was silent. After thinking about it carefully, this was indeed the case. If Master Daoist Yuanmu stirred things up like this, would the cultivators in Yunzhong side with Juyin sect or them? The answer was obvious. If you get killed, I might never get that answer, Ling Yunhe said with a firm gaze. I know there's a sword hanging over my head that might fall at any time, and this world might be destroyed. I can't eat or sleep well every day, so how can I give up this opportunity? As for the Ling clan, he showed a bitter smile. My great-grandfather is still here, so the Ling clan will be fine, but in my opinion, it's still too early to worry about this, Nia Wushang interrupted him. Whether we can get out or not is still another matter. Yes. Nia Wushang's words immediately returned to the main topic. Mo Tiange sighed and said, this time, we're really in big trouble. When we were trapped in the far west, we could still ask for help, but where can we ask for help now? Jing Xingji frowned and said with a wretched expression, we're really unlucky. We were trapped by ghost cultivators once, and now we're trapped for the second time. Wasn't the situation this time similar to the one in the far west? However, the ghost cultivators in the far west were conscious, and they were actively trapped. The ghost cultivators here, on the other hand, were unconscious and were guided by others. Speaking of which, how did Devil Lord Moon Shadow and the others do it? They could actually get these ghost cultivators out of the canyon. Mo Tiange thought about it for a while. Nia Wushang shrugged indifferently. Who knows? There are ghost cultivators in Yunzhong. Maybe this Devil Lord has dealings with ghost cultivators, so he knows some characteristics of ghost cultivators. Everyone was silent again. After a long time, Yang Qingji said, enough with the idle talk. What should we do now? There are nearly 50 nascent soul cultivators and so many ghost cultivators outside. Do we just wait like this? Yes, wait, Qin Shi said, we can't go out now, so we can only wait. Wait until when? Qin Shi smiled and looked at Yang Qingji. We've been waiting for dozens of years in the Palace of Immortals in the ruins of Returning Sea. Why can't we wait now? Yang Qingji thought for a long time and sighed. We can only do this. Ling Yunhe muttered, indeed, we can only wait. If we go out, Martial Uncle Yuanmu won't let us go. Fellow Daoist Ling Mo Tiange suddenly asked, do you think they can leave? I don't know whether they can leave or not, but Martial Uncle Yuanmu isn't a person who will sit still and wait for death. He'll definitely think of a way. Ling Yunhe appeared very confident. This was the confidence he cultivated in the head as a disciple of Juyan's sect for a long time. In fact, there's a very simple and stupid way, Jing Xingji said lazily. As long as they don't fight among themselves and go out to kill a few ghost cultivators from time to time, then retreat to the sacrificial temple when they can't. If they keep killing like this, they'll eventually kill all the ghost cultivators. Everyone thought about it. This was indeed a way, but it would take a long time, but it was also relatively safe. No matter how many ghost cultivators there were, they were still limited. These people were all nascent soul cultivators. For them, the only threat was nascent soul ghost cultivators. The rest were nothing to worry about. More than 100 nascent soul ghost cultivators sounded terrifying, but if they were killed separately, it wouldn't be that difficult. If we can think of this, presumably Devil Lord Yuan can't, Qin she said. In my opinion, they must have a backup plan. In that case, hiding here and watching the show is the best choice, Nia Wushang said after thinking for a while. Upon hearing this, Ling Yunhe looked conflicted. For him, facing people from Juyan's sect and throwing away their lives was unbearable. It seems right. Mo Tiange thought about it carefully. In any case, we have nothing urgent to do. It won't be too late to leave after they rush out and both sides are injured. Right after she finished speaking, Ling Yunhe suddenly stood up. Fellow Daoist Mo, please take me back. The other 5 people's gazes all fell on him. Mo Tiange was surprised. Fellow Daoist Ling, you, Ling Yunhe said, the Ling family raised me, and Juyan's sect raised me. Ling Yunhe was able to have today's achievements because of my sect elders. Now that they're in trouble, how can I only care about myself? Yang Qingji frowned. Fellow Daoist Ling, even if you leave now, Master Daoist Yuanmu won't necessarily forgive you, so why? A bitter smile appeared on Ling Yunhe's face. No matter how martial Uncle Yuanmu treats me, I shouldn't refuse what I should do. Saving you is out of righteousness, and going back to fight side by side with my fellow disciples is also out of righteousness. If I don't care about their lives, how can I say I didn't betray Juyan's sect? Ling Yunhe was a person who never showed mercy when he needed to use means, but deep down, he retained stubborn loyalty. He wasn't like Jing Xingji, whose cold treatment after his master passed away made him lose his sense of belonging to the sect. If it were him, since he had already fallen out with them, why would he turn back? Ling Yunhe was different. He had always been an elite disciple of Juyan's sect. He was focused on training since he was a child, and he was even personally taught by a nascent soul cultivator. Later, he even became the sect head and was regarded as the successor by Master Daoist Yuanmu. Even if he was disappointed later, the preferential treatment he received for more than 200 years wasn't fake. Let him go, Qin she suddenly said. Mo Tiange was a bit surprised. Senior martial brother. If it were you or me, would we give up on our fellow disciples in this kind of situation? Mo Tiange was stunned and pondered with furrowed brows. If it were them, even if Lord Daoist Jinyang disagreed with them one day, it wouldn't change the fact that Xianqing School had protected them for hundreds of years. Mo Tiange sighed and stood up. Fellow Daoist Ling, come with me. Chapter 651. The sudden appearance of Ling Yunhe above the wreckage of the spaceship immediately attracted the attention of all the cultivators in the hall. Among the people of Juyan's sect, Master Daoist Yuanmu's gaze was especially sharp. Ling Yunhe walked over to him, brushed his robe and knelt down without saying a word. After a long time, Master Daoist Yuanmu finally snorted. What, didn't you want to advance and retreat with them? Could it be that they kicked you back? No. Ling Yunhe's expression was calm. I'm a disciple of Zhuyan's sect, so I should advance and retreat with my senior brothers and sisters. Master Daoist Yuanmu flew into a rage and said mockingly, advance and retreat with us. Didn't you just say you wouldn't listen to me? I'm sorry, martial uncle. Sorry. Is that all? Master Daoist Yuanmu wanted to slap him to death. Look at what you've done. Ah. You knew there was news of Black Tortoise, but you didn't tell the sect and even traveled with the sect's enemy. At the critical moment, you stood on their side and helped them escape. You did all this, and you only say sorry. Ling Yunhe said calmly, Martial uncle, it's not that I have news of Black Tortoise, but that they led me to Black Tortoise. Master Daoist Yuanmu was stunned. What? Ling Yunhe continued, among them, fellow Taoists Mo, Yang, and Nia helped me in the past. A month ago, I met fellow Taoist Nia in the North Sea and was entrusted by him to send a message to the Celestial Pole. Thus, they led me to Black Tortoise and promised that if Black Tortoise recognized me as its master, they would help me obtain Black Tortoise. Master Daoist Yuanmu withdrew his angry expression and asked, and the result? They kept their promise, Ling Yunhe said, I obtained Black Tortoise's breath. Master Daoist Yuanmu didn't say anything and just stared at him. When the surrounding nascent soul cultivators heard this, their gazes turned greedy as they looked at Ling Yunhe. When these gazes turned from greedy to dangerous and restless, Master Daoist Yuanmu raised his head and released the spiritual aura of a late nascent cultivator, firmly stopping these people in their tracks. Everyone, it's already been decided who the treasure belongs to. Don't cause any more trouble. Yuan Muzhen said word by word, his gaze sharp. Moreover, we are besieged. It's hard to say if we can get out. As soon as he said that, all the cultivators hesitated. That's right. No matter how important the treasure was, could it be more important than himself? If he was trapped here and unable to escape, so what if he had more treasures? Enlightened Master Yuanmu's tone softened as he continued, fellow Taoists, Yuing, old Donkey Ma, and the others have sinister intentions, intending to trap us here until we die. We should work together as one. If another dispute arises, how are we going to break through the siege? He paused for a moment before adding, if we manage to escape safely, the Zhuyan sect will naturally offer a gift of gratitude. After a series of threats and promises, Spiritual Master Yuanmu finally managed to pacify these people. Then, he cast a soundproof enchantment around the people of Zhuyan's sect and glared fiercely at Ling Yunhe. Get up, I'll deal with you later. Thank you, martial uncle. Ling Yunhe stood up and sat down beside the bearded cultivator. Why did you guys suddenly disappear? Immortal Yuanmu took a deep breath and asked, you suddenly appeared again. Can they also suddenly appear? Ling Yunhe hesitated for a moment then said, Martial Uncle Yuanmu, they helped me obtain Black Tortoise. His attitude annoyed Master Yuanmu again, but this time, he controlled himself and soon regained his composure. Forget it. Brat, you're just stubborn. You just need to say whether they're a threat to us or not. To this question, Ling Yunhe quickly answered, Martial Uncle, don't worry. I can guarantee that. Master Yuanmu stared at him for a while then finally sighed in compromise. Alright, I'll believe you this time. After making sure Ling Yunhe was fine, Mo Tiange closed the small mirror in her hand. This mirror was an ordinary magic weapon. As her cultivation level deepened, her control over the virtual sky world became more and more casual. Showing the scene outside the virtual sky world in the mirror was just a casual action. Fellow Daoist Ling is fine. We don't need to worry about him anymore, Emotianga said. Since you've decided to wait, you can do as you please. It'll be fine as long as you don't destroy my place. Seeing that she looked exhausted and wanted to send them off, the three of them stood up. Nia Wushang said, "Rest well." Yang Qingji only cupped his hands. Jing Xingji giggled. "You want to drive us away so soon? You've been holding it in these past few days, haven't you?" How could they not understand what Jing Xingji meant? Qin Shi was indifferent. Mo Tiange glared at him. "If you say one more word, I'll kick you out." Jing Xingji sealed his mouth and went out with a sneaky smile. He even considerately helped them close the door. "I'm exhausted." Mo Tiange stood up on unsteady feet. She pushed open the door to the neighboring lounge and fell headfirst onto the bed. She then rolled over and buried herself in it. Qin Shi, who was following behind her, found it funny. He pulled her out and laid her down, then he also lay down. The two of them didn't speak for a long time. They just lay there quietly. Ever since they entered Carefree Valley, they'd been fighting non-stop these past few days. After an unknown amount of time, Emotianga suddenly said, "How long do we have to wait?" Qin Shi didn't open his eyes. "Are you in a hurry?" "No." After denying it, Emotianga turned around and touched his face. "We won't stay here for another few decades, right? You'll be old if that happens." Qin Shi opened his eyes and leaned against her. "Am I old?" Emotianga retreated in defeat. By the time they regained their composure, Jing Xingji, Nia Wushang, and Yang Qingji had already started construction outside. They cut down most of her bamboo forest and built a row of bamboo houses. When Emotianga saw this, she felt so distressed that her heart was bleeding. She cut down half of this bamboo forest to build the bamboo houses. Later, Fei Fei used his white tiger strike to test it and cut down another half. Now, they cut down more than half of it, leaving only the outer half. This wasn't ordinary bamboo. Its texture was so hard that it could be used to refine magic weapons. "You guys really aren't polite." She gnashed her teeth. "Building so many houses. Do you want to take root here?" Jing Xingji said shamelessly, "You said it's up to you." Nia Wushang smiled. "I don't care, but this guy insisted on building an immortal's cave for each of us. Cultivation rooms, lounge rooms, collection rooms, concocting rooms. We want all of them." Blue veins twitched on Emotianga's forehead. "They even built suites." Qin Shi raised his eyebrows and cast a sidelong glance at Jing Xingji. "You want to live here for a long time. Don't be so stingy." Jing Xingji put his hand on Qin Shi's shoulder. "It's fine if my fiancé lives here in the future." Nia Wushang nodded seriously. "You're right. It'll be convenient for you to marry into our family in the future." Jing Xingji turned his head and bared his teeth at her. "Thank you so much for being so considerate for me." "Of course," Nia Wushang said bluntly. "When I think about how you'll call me Martial Uncle in the future, I think I should show more love to you." Jing Xingji found a problem. He seemed to have taken advantage of Qin Shoujing's future daughter, but it seemed he was a generation lower than her. Idiot. Glancing at him coldly, Yang Qingji went back to his room to cultivate. Inside the Black Tortoise Temple, under the leadership of Master Daoist Yuanmu, all the cultivators reached a preliminary cooperation agreement that day. All the cultivators trapped in the temple temporarily put aside their grudges and worked together until they were free. After resting for a few days, they divided into small teams according to how close they were to each other and went to test the ghost cultivators' strength. Among them, 20 stayed behind to guard the ghost cultivators, while the others attacked and stayed behind to support the ghost cultivators. The members of each team cooperated closely with each other. They didn't seek to attack by force but to hold their ground. After this arrangement, all the cultivators put aside their prejudices and went out of the temple to test the ghost cultivators' strength. The result was very bad. These ghost cultivators didn't have consciousness and weren't very strong individually, but they seemed to have fighting instincts. As soon as they found people, they swarmed over like a swarm of bees. With this kind of fighting style, they had to fight 1 against 2 even if all 50 of them came out. Moreover, their bodies carried a strange dead aura. This dead aura was different from that of ordinary ghost cultivators. It had a very strong corrosive ability. Once it came into contact with it, it was very difficult to force it out. In the first test, 20 people were surrounded. In the end, 1 died, 2 were seriously corroded, and 7 or 8 were slightly corroded. For nascent soul cultivators, this was already a terrible casualty. This made everyone's expression grave and the atmosphere heavy. After 3 days, all the lightly corroded people were forced out of the dead aura, and the 2 seriously corroded people were saved but lost the ability to fight. The next test was even more cautious. Master Daoist Yuanmu even went out personally, leaving only 10 people behind to look after the ghost cultivators. The others all went out and tried to stick together, avoiding direct contact with the ghost cultivators to avoid being corroded by the dead aura. With a targeted plan, many people no longer held back and took out some magic treasures that could restrain ghost cultivators. This time, the test was very successful. They even killed 7 or 8 ghost cultivators, while most of them only suffered light injuries. This great victory encouraged all the cultivators. They finally had a little confidence in breaking out of the encirclement. More people were injured. This time, they rested for 10 days before taking action again. The cultivators made a series of targeted arrangements, leaving only a few people in the temple. But they still returned with a great victory, killing 5 ghost cultivators. However, they were not so lucky. This time, 2 or 3 people were seriously injured, and even more were lightly injured. Ling Yunhe was confused. We have experience, but why are there more injured people? Master Daoist Yuanmu thought for a long time and sighed. We neglected an important problem. What is it? Resources. Master Daoist Yuanmu said, the ghost aura of these ghost cultivators is hard to guard against. If they are slightly corroded, they can't rely on their own cultivation. They have to use elixirs, but the elixirs are limited. He spoke tactfully. In fact, after more than 20 years of consumption, the elixirs of the nascent soul realm had become much more expensive. None of them had many spare elixirs, which directly affected their speed of recovery. If the ghost aura was not completely expelled and they went into battle, their strength would be affected, and of course, more people would be injured. Then what should we do? Ling Yunhe pondered. Should we leave more time for rest? Master Daoist Yuanmu and the other elected temporary leaders considered for a day and finally decided to adopt Ling Yunhe's suggestion, to take a longer rest and try to completely expel the ghost aura. After recovering their strength, they would go out of the temple to fight again. If they deliberately slowed down, it would take them more than half a year to kill most of the ghost cultivators. Chapter 652. On the mirror, the main hall of the sacrificial temple was empty. They waited in the virtual sky world for a year. The trapped cultivators in the clouds finally killed all the ghost cultivators and left. They waited for more than half a month, but they didn't come back. Shouldn't we also leave? Mo Tiange asked the others for their opinion. Everyone looked at each other. In the end, Nia Wushang said, I think we can go. Jing Xingji stretched his waist. Let's go. It's not convenient to practice swordsmanship here. In fact, as soon as he started practicing, Mo Tiange rushed out and ordered him not to destroy the bamboo forest. But how big was this place? As a nascent soul sword cultivator, how could he control his swordsmanship within a few miles? That being the case, he didn't envy this so-called space crack at all. He wasn't a Dharma cultivator who could make a realm breakthrough by meditating. Yang Qingji also nodded. For devil cultivators, the rich spiritual aura here was nothing to be envious of. He couldn't wait to leave. Finally, Qingji said, "They've been gone for so long, they probably won't come back." Mo Tiange made a decision. "Okay, let's clean up and go out." As soon as she finished speaking, she suddenly felt all the spiritual aura in her body flow and rush outside. Everyone was stunned. Jing Xingji, who was twisting his waist halfway, stopped. "What's going on?" Mo Tiange stood up and pushed the door open. She saw flashing spiritual light outside and countless spiritual aura visible to the naked eye rushing to one place. Xiaofan. She was surprised. Feifei squatted on Stone's shoulder. Stone sat in front of Xiaofan's nest by the stream and stared at it. When it saw them coming out, Feifei scratched its golden fur and said faintly, "It actually beat me to it." It was very resentful. It was the first spiritual beast to absorb the divine beast's breath, and it had already taken human form. How could it let Xiaofan beat it to it? It only had Black Tortoise's breath for a year. Mo Tiange said, "Who told you to be so lazy? Even Xiaohua is more diligent than you." "I'm not lazy anymore." After he was ordered to enter closed-door meditation, he was already very diligent, but things like realm breakthroughs were hard to say. "Qin," she said, "Xiaofan is nearly 1,000 years old. It's always been diligent in its cultivation and has accumulated a lot of experience. Now that it obtained Black Tortoise's breath, it broke through its shackles in one fell swoop. It's not strange at all." Among the few spirit beasts, Lil Fan was the one who had accumulated the most. Moreover, it was well-behaved and never slacked off in its cultivation. Its advancement was a matter of course. After watching for a while, Mo Tiange raised her voice and said, "Xiaofeng." In midair, Xiao Feng transformed into her human form. Her red clothes fluttered as she landed. "Master, Madam. I'll leave this place to you." Mo Tiange pointed at Xiaofan. Xiao Feng nodded. "I understand. Let's go," Mo Tiange said. Xiaofan's realm breakthrough isn't something that can be done in just 1 or 2 days. Jing Xingji sighed. Another one, Mo Tiange ignored him and summoned the bead between her eyebrows. She then cast an incantation to send them out of the virtual sky world. The Black Tortoise sacrificial temple was quiet and devoid of any human activity. The 5 of them cautiously made sure that no one was around before coming out of the shrine. When they came out of the sacrificial temple, there was only a little dead aura around them. It was obvious that the ghost cultivators had all been killed. Going back along the original path, they found that the road was incredibly clean. The black water in the karst cave had decreased a lot, and the power of the condensed people was greatly reduced. Mo Tiange guessed that the black water also existed by relying on the dead aura produced by the ghost cultivators. Now that the ghost cultivators had been slaughtered and the source of the dead aura was gone, presumably the black water would also disappear slowly. After walking through the karst cave, they found that the cracked canyon was empty and only left with the dead aura. Looking down from above, they could vaguely see that the canyon was full of broken walls, tiles, and piles of bones. Presumably, this used to be a human settlement, but it suddenly encountered a shocking change and everyone suffered a disaster. That was why it became a world of ghost cultivators. After passing the canyon and crossing the underground river, they drilled out of the cave and found that the atmosphere in Carefree Valley had changed greatly. The remaining spiritual aura fluctuated violently. "What's going on?" Jing Xingji frowned. Fighting alone shouldn't have such a big impact, right? Mo Tianget spread her divine sense and said a moment later, sure enough, Devil Monarch Moon Shadow and the others have long prepared a trap, waiting for them to step into it. What trap? A killing formation that's even more dangerous than the great mountain protecting formation of a big cultivation group. It's probably the work of 5 Elements Valley, Mo Tiange said. Let's go quickly. With such a great formation, Carefree Valley is full of danger. If we get dragged into it again, it'll be troublesome. Everyone understood that the 2 forces in Yunzhong were fighting, so they'd better leave as soon as possible. Following Mo Tiange, they took many turns, bypassed the dangerous formation, and quickly left Carefree Valley. There was no one outside Carefree Valley, it was no longer as grand as before. Without any delay, they left Jiaoling mountain range and went to the nearest cultivator town to borrow a transporting formation. When they arrived at a small town not far from Jiaoling mountain range, they found that there were many high-level cultivators coming and going in the town. Among them, there was no lack of nascent soul cultivators, while the low-level cultivators were trembling with fear and acting cautiously. Young Qingji volunteered to scout for information. After a while, he came back and said, Yunzhong is in chaos. Mo Tiange hastily asked, what's the situation? Young Qingji said, sure enough, Devil Monarch Yuing set up a trap in Carefree Valley. More than 50 nascent soul cultivators were killed or injured, and only 20 managed to escape, including Master Daoist Yuanmu of Juyin Sect. In the past year, Yu Mountain Academy, Dansha Sect, and 5 Elements Valley put pressure on Juyin Sect. Nearly 10 nascent soul cultivators from Juyin Sect went missing, and the people of Juyin Sect were in chaos. Fortunately, they had a solid foundation and Master Daoist Iron Mask oversaw the situation, so they managed to hold on. As soon as Master Daoist Yuanmu escaped and returned to Juyin Sect, he declared war on the 3 great sections. Ah! Nia Wushang said in surprise, although Juyin Sect is powerful, how can they fight against the 3 great sects? Are their losses serious? It doesn't seem serious. Juyin Sect didn't announce how many casualties they suffered. Juyin Sect naturally wouldn't announce this kind of information. However, judging from their confident looks, their losses shouldn't be big. Qin, she said slowly, the nascent soul cultivators who escaped from Carefree Valley all chose to stand on Juyin Sect's side. The 3 great sects schemed against them, so how could they tolerate this? In this way, both sides can stand on equal footing. Exactly. Young Qingji nodded. The Devil Path and the Buddhist Path aren't calm either. Night Owl City also declared war on Moon Shadow City. Venerable Xuxiang and Devil Monarch Night Frost joined hands to attack Moon Shadow City. There's also Old Donkey Ma. In the end, he sighed. Most of the forces in Yunzhong are involved. Presumably, it won't be peaceful for at least several decades. What about Lingyan? Mo Tiange asked, do you have any news about him? He's fine, young Qingji said faintly. It can be said that he profited from a disaster and regained Master Daoist Yuanmu's trust. Mo Tiange nodded. She felt relieved if that was the case. The 5 of them were silent for a while. In the end, Mo Tiange said, fellow Daoist Yang, what do you plan to do next? Yang Qingji said without hesitation, I don't want to get involved in Yunzhong's affairs, but if you have any news about the sacrificial temple, please allow me to go with you. Mo Tiange nodded. After fighting side by side this time, Yang Qingji proved his trustworthiness with his actions. They had no reason to refuse such a helper. Then, shall we go back to Yunzhong? She turned to look at Qin Shi. Qin Shi uttered an N and said, Yunzhong is in chaos, so it'd be better for us to leave. What about you? He looked at Jing Xingji and Nia Wushang. Nia Wushang said, I want to enter closed-door meditation for a while, then I'll go back to Yunzhong to solve a matter. She looked calm. Obviously, she had already thought about it carefully. Mo Tiange thought for a moment and immediately knew what matter Nia Wuxiang wanted to solve. She looked at her and said, "If you need help, come to me." Nia Wuxiang nodded then smiled. "I'm afraid I won't have this chance. I have to do this matter myself." That was her own karma. Mo Tiange also smiled and patted her shoulder. "Then I wish you all the best. What about you? Are you willing to accept my suggestion?" She looked at Jing Xingji. Jing Xingji stretched his body then said, "I'll go back with you." He seemed to say it casually without the slightest hesitation. Presumably, he'd thought about it for a long time. She was surprised to see him agree. "You've thought it through." Jing Xingji smiled faintly. "You're right. At this critical moment, what's the use of thinking about those things? Gujin sect is my beginning. I want to go back and take back everything my master lost." Perhaps he didn't have the same reverence for Gujin sect anymore, but there were people he respected in Gujin sect. Whether it was his late master or venerable swordsman Yuanying, he didn't want their efforts to go to waste. If it was really like what they said, that the world would be destroyed after the world fell into chaos, he still wanted to go back to Gujin sect. "Hey, if you go back to Gujin sect, what's your title?" "Venerable Swordsman Xingji." No, I have to pick up goosebumps." Jing Xingji rolled his eyes at Mo Tiange and said, "Among our Gujin sect's titles, some are names, some are Daoist names, and some are sword names. I've never taken a Daoist name, so I'll naturally take my sword name as my title." Although Gujin sect was also based on Daoist laws, it wasn't like orthodox Daoist groups where core formation cultivators took Daoist names, Dao Masters, and Lord Daoists. Whether they took Daoist names or not was entirely up to them. Among venerable swordsmen Nascent Soul, Yuanying was his name, Fuling and Zhongguang were his Daoist names, and Xiaohe was his sword name. Jing Xingji's name was 3 characters, and he didn't have a Daoist name, so he naturally followed the habit of taking his sword name as his title and took it as Venerable Swordsman Stillwater. Venerable Swordsman Stillwater, Venerable Swordsman Stillwater. Mo Tiange repeated it twice and held back her laughter. "They really match." Jing Xingji ignored her. "Congratulations." Nia Wuxiang nodded at him with a smile. Jing Xingji, who was used to Nia Wuxiang's sarcastic remarks from time to time, felt awkward and asked cautiously, "Are you normal?" Nia Wuxiang stopped smiling and said seriously, "Do you want to change your sword name? If there's nothing else, let's go." She said, "Our group is too eye-catching, so we better not stay here for too long." Mo Tiange nodded and said, "Let's leave a message for Ling Yunhe. After all, he's now our companion." No one objected. Mo Tiange thought for a moment then said to Nia Wuxiang and Yang Qingji, "You two have the primordial devil great technique, so you'd better leave Yunzhong to avoid running into Moon Shadow Devil Monarch." Yang Qingji said, "I still have some things to deal with. After I'm done, I'll leave Yunzhong and maybe go to the Celestial Pole." Nia Wuxiang said, "I've already decided to go to Shaoyang to hide." Mo Tiange was stunned. "Shaoyang. Nia Wuxiang nodded. "Shaoyang is a barren place with complicated people. It's a good place to hide. Whether it's Yunzhong or the Celestial Pole, they're not suitable for me right now." Mo Tiange thought of Master Song Feng and sighed. The 5 of them finally agreed that Yang Qingji would send a message to Ling Yunhe, then they would exchange 10,000-mile sound-transmitting talismans with each other to decide on a place to contact each other. Chapter 653. After returning to Xianqing School, they went to visit Lord Daoist Jinghe. Lord Daoist Jinghe was very satisfied with their return after more than a year. "How was it?" How was your harvest? This question stunned them for a moment. After thinking about it carefully, it seemed that apart from Xiaofan obtaining Black Tortoise's breath, they didn't gain anything else. Did they work for nothing? After they told their experiences, Lord Daoist Jinghe waved his hand. It's good that you got Black Tortoise's breath. Wait until you go to the last sacrificial temple and see what's going on. Mo Tiange pondered for a while and asked doubtfully, Master, the friend Senior Hoopa mentioned seemed to have a hard time going to the sacrificial temple. Why did it seem easy for us? If no one fought for it, it would have been a smooth journey without any twists and turns. But we didn't discover the so-called secret at all. Did we do something wrong? Lord Daoist Jinghe said, I've thought about this a long time ago. It's indeed not right. However, this is only what Senior Hoopa told us. We don't know the truth. We don't know enough, so we can't make inferences. Mo Tiange sighed. She also knew it was difficult to infer the truth with such little information. Okay, you two can go and rest. We have no clues about the Qilan sacrificial temple. I'm afraid we'll have to slowly inquire about it. Just concentrate on cultivating. Yes, Master. The two of them answered and asked about the sect situation before leaving Shangqing Palace and returning to the cave in the extreme abyss pool. Grandmaster. Upon seeing the two of them, Xiaoguzi and Xiaozue, who were sitting back to back and laughing while reading a book by the pool, were so shocked that they hastily stood up. Greetings, Grandmasters. Welcome back, Grandmasters. Mo Tiange was amused. Why are you so scared? Xiaoguzi looked up and saw that they weren't angry. He smiled and said, Disciple lost his composure. Grandmasters, please don't blame me. Just don't go out and embarrass yourselves. She had already gone inside. Mo Tiange said, Call them here. Yes, Grandmaster Qingwei. Soon, all the disciples came to greet her. Yiwen and Shisu were still absent. She trained them to serve the sect, so she didn't care. Yixinji and Shui Linbo were both absent. Yixinji had made up his mind to train himself well, so he had been killing enemies on Demonic Mountain in recent years, while Shui Linbo went out to look for opportunities to form her gold core. Sang Yushu, Xia Jingyi, and Qi Yunshu remained in the cave. Hearing the news, the three of them hurried over to pay their respects. The two of them carefully asked the disciples about their homework and were quite satisfied. As expected, it was right for them to not only look at aptitude. Other than aptitude, temperament was even more important. Look at these three people. Where else could they find such worry-free disciples? You're very good, Mo Tiange said gently, however, when it comes to cultivation, you have to have a limit. You can't force yourself. Your foundation isn't very solid, so you mustn't be too hasty. You should know that the age at which you form your gold core or your nascent soul is just an empty title. The most important thing is to walk step by step steadily. Thinking about it, she felt that as the youngest nascent soul cultivator in the celestial pole, it seemed a bit like showing off her age was not important and it was hard to convince others, so she continued to say, on this point, I have the most experience. If you can make a realm breakthrough later, when the conditions are right, you'll succeed naturally. Compared to advancing earlier, you'll have fewer hidden dangers and can go further. Her two disciples and Sang Yushu nodded in agreement. They had all heard that when Lord Daoist Qingwei built his foundation, he deliberately slowed down his cultivation speed. At that time, they just felt envious, but now they had a different understanding. After teaching her for a while, she sent her three disciples away. The two of them sat opposite each other and didn't speak for a long time. After a long time, she asked, What are you thinking about? After a while, Mo Tiange answered, I'm thinking about Yunzhong. What's wrong? Mo Tiange took some time to think, then said, "Say, for this kind of thing to suddenly happen in Yunzhong, is it because of fate?" She was stunned. She continued to say, "Think about it. What Demon Lord Yuing did was too bold. Did he just want to trigger a melee in Yunzhong? If it were me, since I decided to trap and kill these people, I would make sure no one was left alive." Qin Shi paused and asked, "How do you know Demon Lord Yuing didn't think that way?" "But only half of the trapped cultivators were killed or injured," Qin Shi shook his head. "We only see the result, but we can't see the process. Maybe Demon Lord Yuing originally had a foolproof plan, but it failed." Mo Tiange tilted her head and thought about it. She nodded slowly. "It seems. And what you said makes sense." Qin Shi said, "Of course, it's also possible that there was a problem with their plan, or the strength of the trapped people was beyond their expectations. We're just outsiders and can only see one side of it." Mo Tiange was lost in thought for a while and said, "The world changed, and the continents changed positions. We and the demonic cultivators met, which led to a war. Yuan province lost its good position and was connected to the demonic cultivators' continent, so it faced a life-and-death situation. Now, Yunzhong is in chaos because of the decline of One Leaf Island and North Pole Island. The world changed because of us. In other words, is it all because of us?" "I don't think so," Qin Shi said faintly. "We still don't know why the world changed. Even if it's because of us, so what? Mortals say that everything is predetermined, let alone something that concerns billions of people in the world. We're just an inducement. Besides, Senior Hoopa said that the world is in chaos and evil thoughts are everywhere. In my opinion, people's hearts are the root of the chaos. Look at Demon Lord Yuing. If he wasn't greedy, why would he do this? Old Donkey Ma, Teacher Yu, and the others are even more so." Mo Tiange thought for a while and sighed. "Forget it. It happened anyway. It's meaningless to look into the cause. Yes, if we want to know the root of all this, we have to solve this mystery. Maybe we'll get the answer when we go to Qilin." Mo Tiange hesitated. "Senior Marshal Brother, do you really think we'll get the answer if we go to Qilin? We've been to 4 sacrificial temples, but we didn't get anything." Qin Shi smiled. "Even so, we have to go to Qilin. We know too little and can do too little. There's nothing else we can do except this." And, several days later, news came from Kuinzhong City that Jing Xingji had returned to Gujin's sect and was called Venerable Swordsman Stillwater. Mo Tiange giggled. He was really called Venerable Swordsman Stillwater. Speaking of which, his return made Gujin's sect overjoyed and Tiandao's sect worried. In addition to Venerable Swordsman Yuanying, there were 2 other nascent soul sword cultivators in Gujin's sect. They were both in the early stage and seemed to have mediocre aptitudes. Jing Xingji's return happened to fill this gap. He had high aptitudes, strong swordsmanship, young age, and was already in the middle stage of the nascent soul realm, so it was very likely that he would advance to the late stage. As for Venerable Swordsman Yuanying, he was about the same age as Lord Daoist Xinyang. If there were no accidents, he could live for another 600 or 700 years. If Jing Xingji had enough fated chances, this amount of time would be enough for him to advance to the late stage. As long as there were cultivators in the late stage of the nascent soul realm, Gujin sect could always maintain its transcendent position. As for Tiandao sect, they only had 5 nascent soul cultivators. If no more disciples advanced to the nascent soul realm, they would be suppressed by Gujin sect sooner or later. Jing Xingji's return almost made Lu Dingyuan's head turn white from worry. Compared to Tiandao sect, Xianqing school was much calmer. Gujin sect had many nascent soul cultivators, but were they more than them? The current Xianqing school wasn't the Xianqing school from 200 years ago. Besides, with that huge amount of resources, would they need to worry about having no successors? Speaking of which, the disciples attracted by Qin Shi's soul formation were also about to form their gold cores. The sects in the celestial pole grew and declined. Generally speaking, it was still stable, but Yunzhong was a mess. After the incident in Carefree Valley, Zhuyan's sect had a falling out with Yu Mountain Academy, Danxia sect, and Five Elements Valley. They united with the small and medium-sized cultivation groups that were killed in Carefree Valley and fought each other to the death. The cultivation world in Yunzhong had been peaceful for too long. Once this fight broke out, the losses were especially huge. However, no one could stop. Nearly 30 nascent soul cultivators died at the same time. How shocking was that? How could the sects of those fallen cultivators swallow this anger? This kind of blood feud would certainly be passed down from generation to generation until one side was defeated or ended by a stronger force. And all of this had nothing to do with Mo Tiange and the others who left Yunzhong. Inside the virtual sky world, the spiritual aura was almost tangible. In front of Xiaofan's house, a vast and distant aura gathered the water spiritual aura into a stream. Xiaofan came to greet them. Master, Madam. Mo Tiange asked, how is it? Xiaofang reported, it's almost done. It'll probably happen in 1 or 2 days. Mo Tiange nodded then asked, what about Fei Fei and Xiaohua? If nothing unexpected happens, Xiaohua will make a realm breakthrough in 3 to 5 years. As for Fei Fei, Xiaofang shrugged. His situation is unusual. Probably only he knows about it. Then, what about Shitu? Mo Tiange turned her head to look, but she couldn't find Shitu's huge body. Madam, what do you want to ask? If it's cultivation level. Xiaofeng said with some embarrassment, please forgive Xiaofeng's ignorance, but I really don't know how to classify it, so. On the surface, Shitu looked like a demonic beast, but its flesh and blood had long changed and now looked like Shitu's. Moreover, its aura was mixed, so it really couldn't be classified. Forget it. Mo Tiange decided to give up. Shitu isn't our spiritual beast, he's just Fei Fei's friend. Don't worry about him, just let him live there. Xiaofeng nodded. Just as she was about to report the situation of the virtual sky world, the stream in front of Xiaofan's house suddenly moved and the water rushed into the house. With a splash sound, the house was suddenly washed away, revealing a huge mass of water. A person was wrapped in the clear water. As the water swirled rapidly, it slowly became shallow. When the water ran out, that person slowly fell to the ground. This was a teenager about 18 or 19 years old. He looked a bit older than Fei Fei, but he didn't have Fei Fei's bewitching handsomeness. He was dressed in low-key cyan gray clothes, plain and unremarkable. However, if one took a closer look, they would find that his eyes and brows were clear with a hint of shyness. His whole body was like water, incomparably clean, making people unable to have any filthy thoughts. Greetings, Master. After landing, the teenager stepped forward and saluted Mo Tiange. Seeing Qin Shi beside her, he wanted to salute him too, but he hesitated. He didn't know what to call Qin Shi, so he showed an embarrassed expression. Seeing this, Mo Tiange smiled and said, Xiaofan. Yes. Xiaofan regained his composure. How was it? Did the transformation go smoothly? Xiaofan looked happy and said, I've integrated the black tortoise pearl into my beast core, and all my spiritual aura has been transformed into black tortoise's breath. I'm no different from divine beast black tortoise now. That's good. Mo Tiange felt that his breath was solid, so there shouldn't be any future troubles, so she said, get ready. We're going out to cross the tribulation. Chapter 654. In the sky above Clear Spring Peak, lightning flashed and thunder rumbled. Shocked, Xianqing school disciples rushed out of their caves to watch this amazing scene. Look, what's this? Is someone forming his gold core? No. Another disciple curled his lips. Last time Martial Uncle Dingguan formed his gold core, it wasn't like this. What? What's that? The wind was so strong that they couldn't even stand stably. Before they could chat, a core formation cultivator flew into the air and shouted, "All disciples, return to your caves and activate the defensive formation. No one is allowed to go out without orders." His voice was enhanced by a spell. It traveled far and wide and repeated several times. The aura refining and foundation building disciples returned to their Immortal's caves with doubts in their hearts. In the end, they were all guessing what kind of extraordinary thing had happened. After the low-level disciples returned to their caves, Xianqing School's great mountain protecting formation was activated. Except for Lord Daoist Lingxi, who was in closed-door meditation, the other 4 nascent soul Lord Daoists who stayed in the sect all appeared in the air above the main peak. They stood in 4 corners with a teenager in a green and gray robe in the middle. After the dark clouds gathered, the first thunder fell. The earth-shattering feeling made the low-level cultivators panic. However, when they thought about the nascent soul patriarchs in the sect, they all calmed down and meditated in the cave abode, waiting for news. Mo Tiange and the others had already experienced the shape-shifting heavenly tribulation. Now that they were inside the sect, there was a great mountain protecting formation above them, and there were 4 nascent soul cultivators watching over them from below. Although the commotion was big, it was stable. Xiaofan's heavenly tribulation was the same as Xiaofang's. Not only did it have 10 tribulations, but it also had golden lightning in the end. Presumably, it was because he inherited the divine beast and had the bloodline of the black tortoise. Half a day later, the clouds in the sky dissipated, revealing a clear sky. The great mountain protecting formation returned to its half-open state. The core formation cultivators of each peak flew into the air and shouted, "The ban has been lifted. All disciples can go out freely." Upon hearing that, the low-level disciples felt relieved and hurriedly went out to inquire about what happened. Soon, a piece of news spread throughout Xianqing School. Another nascent soul, no, an 8th-rank beast cultivator appeared in the sect. Xiaofeng's matter wasn't concealed, so most Xianqing School disciples knew about it. Under Lord Daoist Shoujing's name, there was a demonic beast that passed the transformation tribulation and became a demonic cultivator, which was equivalent to the school's 9th nascent soul cultivator. Now, another demon beast under Dao Lord Qing Wei had advanced to take on a human form and was equivalent to the 10th nascent soul cultivator. Many of the disciples were overjoyed by this news. In addition, the sect had been extremely generous in the past 10 years, and the number of foundation establishment and core formation cultivators had been increasing day by day. They couldn't help but have incomparable confidence in the sect. Xianqing School was indeed the #1 cultivation group in the celestial pole. Even Tiandao's sect at its peak couldn't compare to them. After receiving her school uniform and identity tablet, Yifan returned to the extreme abyssal pool alone. Mo Tiange and Qin she didn't leave. Together with the 2 Lord Daoists, Jinghe and Huayan, they sat in the Hall of 3 Pure Ones. Demon Cultivator, ha! A demon cultivator. Lord Daoist Jinghe drank a cup of tea, then cast a sidelong glance at the 2 of them. "You 2 little brats, you're really quiet." Apart from the spirit beast sect, he had never heard of any sect having a spirit beast that could transform into human form. "It's fine if there's only one of you, but there's a second one. Hurry up and tell me, are there more?" Mo Tiange smiled. "Yes, I still have 2 more spirit beasts that are about to transform into human form." "Ah!" Lord Daoist Jinghe was stunned. "You really have more?" "Yes." Mo Tiange tried to be low-key, lest this childish master would make a fuss. Lord Daoist Jinghe didn't make a fuss, but he glared at her and muttered indignantly, "Humph, all the good things are yours." Humph. During the heavenly tribulation just now, she actually used her natal magic weapon to collect the lightning of the heavenly tribulation. That was heavenly tribulation lightning, and it was the golden lightning among the heavenly tribulation lightning. He almost hated himself for not having a thunder spiritual root, master. Qin Shi called out and glanced at him faintly. He could see the meaning behind Qin Shi's words, "Don't be childish." Lord Daoist Jinghe felt even more indignant. Accepting these two disciples was simply to piss him off. Shoujing, Qingwei, Lord Daoist Huayan spoke in time and looked at the two of them with a smile. "I haven't congratulated you yet. You've gained another big helper. Senior Martial Brother, you're too polite." Qin Shi said with a smile, "These spirit beasts are still far from being able to stand on their own. In any case, it's a good thing for them to advance and take human form." Lord Daoist Huayan paused for a moment and brought up business. "Yesterday, I sent a message to Kuanzhong City. Senior Martial Brother Xinyang was very happy and told us to do everything as usual and ignore other things. They'll handle it. Do everything as usual." Mo Tiange looked up. "Yes." Lord Daoist Huayan stared at them gently. "Senior Martial Brother Xinyang has considered the matter in Yunzhong and specially told us that it doesn't matter if we don't get anything. Man proposes, God disposes. Senior Martial Brother Xinyang also thinks that everything can only be concluded after we find the Qilin. The sect has been looking for clues about the Qilin. You two just need to cultivate. Only when you have enough strength can you be prepared." "Yes," Mo Tiange and Qin Shi answered at the same time. "By the way, you won't be in closed-door meditation soon, will you?" Mo Tiange and Qin Shi looked at each other and shook their heads. "No. Then you should spend more time teaching your disciples. In any case, we're the nascent soul Lord Taoists of the sect. Teaching them casually might be the best way to heaven for those disciples." "Yes, I'll follow Senior Martial Brother's instructions." Mo Tiange secretly glanced at Lord Daoist Jinghe, who was still angry and ignoring them, and thought to herself, "Senior Martial Brother Huayan is acting like a teacher. Master, you can forget about it, *****, since it was the decision of her senior martial brothers, Mo Tiange and Qin Shi also cultivated and taught disciples in the sect with peace of mind. More than 10 years ago, when Lord Daoist Jinghe took charge of the sect and began to train disciples, he said that just like aura refining and foundation building disciples, core formation cultivators would also hold a monthly spell assembly. Core formation cultivators were different from low-level disciples. After they entered the core formation realm, they had their own understanding of cultivation and had chosen the path they wanted to take, so they didn't need to be guided step by step like before. Therefore, this spell assembly was mostly about core formation cultivators raising questions and nascent soul Lord Taoists explaining. There were only a few nascent soul Lord Taoists staying in the sect. Needless to say, Lord Daoist Lingxi was always in closed-door meditation, and only Lord Daoist Jinghe and Lord Daoist Huayan were alive. Therefore, the spell assembly didn't have a fixed location. Lord Daoist Jinghe would give a talk in Shangqing Palace, and Lord Daoist Huayan would occasionally give a talk in Seoul's Retreat Peak. After Mo Tiange and Qin Shi returned, they also joined the ranks of the main speakers. From time to time, the rocks on the surface of the extreme abyss were filled with core formation cultivators. In the past 10 years, the number of core formation cultivators increased day by day. Although many of them were outside and many of them were in closed-door meditation, there were still nearly 20 people who often came to listen to the talks. In front of these core formation cultivators, most of whom were older than her, Mo Tiange was a bit restrained at first, but later, after talking a lot, she relaxed. Regardless of her age, her cultivation level was solid, so in front of these people, she was a senior. As for these core formation cultivators, because she went to Yunzhong after advancing to the core formation realm and only returned after advancing to the nascent soul realm, they weren't familiar with her. In the past few decades, Xianqing School had already shaped her into the most talented cultivator in the history of the celestial pole. Every disciple in the school admired her, and they were no exception. Cultivating, teaching, preaching, time passed like flowing water. 5 years later, Xiaohua advanced and took a human form as expected. Xiaohua was only about 200 years old. After taking a human form, it looked like a 14 or 15-year-old girl, lively and quick-witted, completely different from Xiaofeng's amorous style. Feifei was already numb to Xiaohua's transformation, but when Mo Tiange laughed at it, it just sneered, turned around, locked itself in the hut, and went to work hard. Feifei's seclusion lasted 10 years. Feifei was the first spiritual beast to obtain the divine beast's breath. If it had a good foundation and the Feifeis were a clan that focused on divine comprehension, Xiaofan and Xiaohua wouldn't have advanced to the 8th rank before them. After 10 years of meditation, it finally absorbed the white tiger's breath completely and rushed to the 8th rank in one fell swoop. Feifei's 8th rank heavenly tribulation was still helped by Lord Daoist Jinghe and Lord Daoist Huayan. With Xiaofan and Xiaohua in front, the two of them and the low-level cultivators below them were already used to fighting against heavenly tribulations. Except for those who entered the school within 10 years, all the disciples closed their immortals' caves, opened the defensive formation, and waited for the heavenly tribulation to pass. This time, Feifei's heavenly tribulation also had 10 tribulations, and its power was a bit stronger than that of the other 3 divine beasts. Mo Tiange thought it might be because Feifei had the bloodline of a divine beast. After Feifei's heavenly tribulation, news came from Kuanzhong City that the Immortal Alliance intended to launch a strong attack on the beast cultivators and beat them back in one fell swoop. This would give the celestial pole several decades or even hundreds of years of peace so that they could recuperate and concentrate on dealing with the devil path. For this reason, the Immortal Alliance summoned all the nascent soul cultivators to Kuanzhong City. Lord Daoist Jinyang ordered that the sect would be handed over to Mo Tiange, Qin Shi, and Lord Daoist Lingxi, while Jinghe and Huayan would go to Kuanzhong City. After receiving the order, Lord Daoist Jinghe and Lord Daoist Huayan gave a few simple instructions and set foot on the transporting formation to Kuanzhong City. The 3 islands of Shaoyang. In the hearts of the cultivators in Yunzhong and Yuanzhou, Shaoyang was the most dangerous place they didn't want to go to. Compared with the orderly order in Yunzhong and Yuanzhou, Shaoyang was a place without laws and rules at all. Murder and robbery were commonplace here. There was only one rule in living here: the winner takes all. Originally, Yunzhong was in the middle, Yuanzhou was in the east, and Shaoyang was in the west, forming a line. After the world changed, Yunzhong moved to the north, Yuanzhou moved to the southwest, and Shaoyang moved to the east. Now, Shaoyang was in the middle, Yunzhong was in the north, and Yuanzhou was in the south. Now, Shaoyang and Yunzhong were separated by the original South Sea of the Celestial Pole. There were no islands, and the sea area was dangerous, which was equivalent to cutting off contact. On the other hand, Yuanzhou, because of its numerous islands and relatively calm sea area, became the favorite target of plunder for cultivators in Shaoyang. From time to time, they would invite their friends and relatives to go to Yuanzhou for a few days to rob, kill, and seize treasures. They would have fun and didn't even need to pay for the trip. This led to 2 consequences. First, the living standards of the cultivators in Shaoyang rose sharply. Second, the fighting standards of the cultivators in Yuanzhou rose sharply. Aside from the disharmonious process, the result alone seemed to be, everyone was happy, and it could be said that everyone got something. Nia Wushang lived a very comfortable life here. Everyone in Shaoyang was a desperado, and most of them were devil cultivators. Whoever had the bigger fist was the boss, which really suited her very well. On the first day she arrived in Shaoyang, the few nascent soul cultivators in Shaoyang all thought she came to snatch their territory, so they made unwise decisions one after another. Based on the principle of killing whoever stood in her way, Nia Wushang quickly beat down most of them and became the overlord of Shaoyang on the island. Chapter 655. Nia Wushang opened her eyes and clenched her fists, feeling very satisfied. After settling for so many years, she finally broke through and entered the middle stage. In fact, she formed her devil nascent earlier than Emotianga. Back then, Mei Feng created Primordial Devil and swallowed a lot of core formation cultivators. She originally planned to use it on herself to directly advance from the early stage to the late stage of the nascent soul realm, but in the end, she took advantage of it. With that Primordial Devil aura, she became a devil cultivator and only needed to use that Primordial Devil aura to form her nascent soul. But later, because the Primordial Devil art she stole wasn't complete, she stayed in the early stage, which slowed down her cultivation speed. After obtaining the Primordial Devil steel, her cultivation progressed by leaps and bounds. Devil cultivators rarely encountered bottlenecks, so she finally rushed into the middle stage in one go. Fortunately, she wasn't too slow. Qin Shi and Jing Xingji were cultivators of the same generation, but their ages were 100 years apart. Mo Tiange was a bit younger than her, so it was embarrassing for her to be behind her. Nia Wushang stretched her muscles and felt comfortable all over, so she stood up and walked out of the cave. Shaoyang was indeed the most dangerous place in the eyes of Yunzhong cultivators. Here, the barren hills and unruly rivers, the spirit veins, and the devil's domain were extremely small. When Nia Wushang came here for the first time, she simply wanted to shed tears of sympathy for the cultivators of Shaoyang. In Yunzhong, core formation cultivators didn't even want the one she occupied now, but in Shaoyang, it became an immortal's cave that nascent soul cultivators fought over. There weren't many nascent soul cultivators in Shaoyang. Who was willing to suffer in Shaoyang after cultivating to the nascent soul realm? Those who stayed in Shaoyang had no other choice. Some had too many enemies, some offended people they shouldn't offend, and some got into trouble because of their wealth. In addition, there were only so many resources in Shaoyang. After fighting and killing, there were only 5 nascent soul cultivators left. 2 of them were beaten to the ground by her, 2 were scared away by her, and the last one was very smart and didn't get involved, so this cave naturally belonged to her. Devil Monarch. Upon seeing her, a bearded core formation devil cultivator with a weathered face hurriedly came forward and respectfully saluted her. Devil Monarch, if you have something to say, just tell me to do it. Nia Wushang nodded very calmly, then took out a jade slip. Prepare these things. Yes. The fiendish cultivator took the jade slip and scanned it with his divine sense. He was stunned. Fiend Lord, this. What? Is there a problem? Nia Wushang indifferently glanced at him. The fiendish cultivator shuddered. He couldn't help but think back to several decades ago, when she beat up the previous master of the Immortal's cave to the point where his nascent soul was almost shattered. He repeatedly said, "No, no." He skimmed through the jade slip once more. This subordinate will immediately gather people and head to Yuan province. Wait. Nia Wushang took out a spirit stone pouch. Don't alarm others. Just go to Yuanzhou and buy it by yourself. The fiendish cultivator stared at her with his mouth agape. Buy it? It was the first time Xiao Yang, a nascent soul cultivator, wanted to buy something. What? Another problem. Nia Wushang slowly clenched her fists. I wouldn't dare. The fiendish cultivator took the bag of spirit stones. I'll do it immediately. I guarantee that no one will find out. Nia Wushang nodded in satisfaction. Go. Yes. The fiendish cultivator didn't dare to say another word and eagerly left. After watching him leave, Nia Wushang stood for a while before returning to her cave and sitting down cross-legged again. The middle stage of nascent soul plus those things were more or less enough. She didn't dare to wait until the late stage of nascent soul. By that time, his injuries would most likely have already recovered, right? She knew his strength too well. If she let him recover his cultivation level, it would be very difficult for her to have another chance. At that time, she could only wait for his lifespan to run out and she would pass away. If that was the case, this knot in her heart would never be untied. Nia Wushang once again clenched her fists, her gaze firm and resolute. She must personally knock him down and give herself a new life. In less than a month, the core formation devil cultivator returned from Yuan province. He respectfully presented the Qinquan bag and the remaining spirit stones. Devil Monarch, this subordinate didn't fail you. Nia Wushang took the Qinquan bag, checked it one by one then nodded. Good, you did well. You can be considered conscientious for several decades. Since you're so obedient, I can promise you one request. The core formation devil cultivator was overjoyed and hurriedly bowed. Thank you, Devil Monarch. Nia Wushang said faintly, before I leave Small Sun City, I'll keep my promise. You can think it over before coming back. The devil cultivator was stunned. Devil Monarch, you want to leave Small Sun City? Nia Wushang slightly raised her eyes and looked at the void, not answering for a long time. Just when the devil cultivator thought she wouldn't answer, she said, You'd better tell me earlier, lest I can't fulfill my promise in time. Devil Monarch, say it. The devil cultivator said, Devil Monarch should know that this subordinate was seriously injured many years ago, so my devil core was damaged and it's hard for my cultivation level to advance, I know. Without waiting for him to finish, Nia Wushang said, I can help you repair your devil core, but that's all. The devil cultivator was overjoyed. Thank you, Devil Monarch. Thank you. Nia Wushang looked at him thanking her profusely and sighed inwardly. This subordinate voluntarily came to her after she occupied the island. She took a fancy to him because his devil core was damaged and he was simple-minded. The reason why his devil core was damaged and he was stranded in Small Sun City was because of his sad past. This made Nia Wushang inevitably think that if she hadn't acted quickly, the best result would be the same as him, right? Master, master. Her eyes were cold and her fists were clenched. After a long time, she slowly exhaled. She would definitely get revenge for more than 100 years of humiliation. Although the war between beast cultivators was in full swing, Xianqing School's major competition, which was held once every 50 years, was still held. According to Xianqing School's rules, the aura refining and foundation building realms would have a minor competition every 10 years, while the foundation building and core formation realms would have a major competition every 50 years. In the past few decades, Xianqing School had many talented foundation building and core formation cultivators. Almost half of the disciples were fighting outside, but there were still more than 300 foundation building disciples and more than 30 core formation cultivators in the school. The rewards for the major competition were very generous. From cultivation techniques, magic weapons, to spiritual pills and materials, there was everything. Furthermore, core formation cultivators aside, there was a high chance that foundation establishment cultivators would be taken in as disciples by core formation perfected beings or even nascent souls if they performed outstandingly in the competition. For most people, that was an irresistible temptation. At this moment, on the main peak of Mount Taikang, a huge fighting arena was built out of thin air with a profound formation technique. From the outside, the fighting arena looked like a transparent lotus platform floating in the air, but for the people inside, it was a vast and boundless world. On the fighting arena, life and death didn't matter. This didn't mean that dying on the fighting arena would be in vain. Rather, it meant that even if you died, you wouldn't die. This fighting arena wasn't an ordinary fighting arena. Those inside would be protected by a formation, and their real primordial spirit and physical body would be preserved. Even if their physical body and primordial spirit were destroyed during the competition, they would be restored to their original state once it was over. Under Elder Weiwu's order, the two foundation-building disciples on the fighting arena began to fight. On the cloud platforms surrounding the dueling arena, the core formation perfected masters watched and commented on their disciples. This was a rare opportunity to watch a real fight. Because of the characteristics of the fighting arena, it was different from the usual sparring. It could better display the strength of cultivators and make it easier to see their strengths and weaknesses. Watching this scene, Mo Tiange couldn't help but sigh. The strength of a big cultivation group was really beyond the reach of small cultivation groups. Even a medium-sized cultivation group like Yunwu's sect couldn't build this fighting arena even if they used all their resources, let alone those small cultivation groups with only a few core formation cultivators. When she wandered around Kunwo with second uncle, she saw many Immortals assemblies held by cultivation groups, but they were all just ordinary fighting arenas reinforced with formations. Junior Martial Sister Qingwei, you've never participated in the major competition between cultivation groups, right? A gentle and refined voice rang in her ears. Mo Tiange turned around and saw Lord Daoist Lingxi on the other side. The old ones were all conscripted to Kuanzhong City, so there were only the three of them in Xianqing School. Lord Daoist Lingxi just came out of closed-door meditation not long ago. Her cultivation level had improved greatly, so she was in a good mood and felt like spring breeze was blowing on her face all day long. Senior Martial Brother Lingxi, you must be joking. Junior Martial Sister never had a chance. Lord Daoist Lingxi smiled and said, for disciples of nascent soul Lord Daoists like us, foundation-building cultivators generally don't participate in major and minor competitions, only core formation cultivators participate. Junior Martial Sister never had a chance, but you advanced too quickly. Senior Martial Brother Shoujing and I participated in two major competitions when we were in the core formation realm. During the first competition, Senior Martial Brother Shoujing was in closed-door meditation, so we only had one chance to share the stage. Oh. Mo Tiange was quite interested. What was the result? Of course I lost. Lord Daoist Lingxi smiled. Although he said he lost, he didn't care about it at all. Qin Shi smiled and said, that's because you just advanced to the core formation realm and your cultivation level has just stabilized. We're about the same age. What do you mean I just advanced to the core formation realm? I lost to you. Lord Daoist Lingxi shook his head and said jokingly, Senior Martial Brother Shoujing, you're still so modest after winning. What do you think we, the losers, do? Qin Shi waved his hand and looked at Mo Tiange. The real winner is over there. We're all losers in front of her. Lord Daoist Lingxi was stunned for a moment before he burst into laughter. Then he said, Senior Martial Brother Shoujing, I'm confident in other things, but I really can't compare to you in this aspect. Qin Shi also laughed without the slightest embarrassment. Speaking of this, in recent decades, outstanding disciples have appeared frequently in the sect. This year's major competition is quite worth watching. Lord Daoist Lingxi's gaze shifted to the fighting stage. His eyes flickered. Oh, this disciple is not bad. Mo Tiange and Qin Shi also turned around and were also attracted by the fighting stage. The two disciples on the fighting stage were both in the middle stage of the foundation building realm. One of them had a lot of treasures and spells, so he was probably an elite disciple under a core formation cultivator. The other disciple was much worse off. He only had a high-grade magic tool, and the cultivation technique he practiced was also relatively ordinary. Of these two disciples, the former was suppressed and beaten, which was really strange. After watching for a while, Qinshi suddenly said, "This person is really a promising talent." Lord Daoist Lingxi nodded. "Yes. Whether it's magic tools or cultivation techniques, he's far inferior, but he relies on a solid foundation and flexible adaptability to the situation. What's more rare is that his fighting spirit is high and he's very tenacious. In time, he'll definitely have some achievements." Qinshi looked at him. "Junior martial brother Lingxi, you're very interested in this disciple." Lord Daoist Lingxi smiled and summoned a disciple. "What's his name?" The disciple flipped through the name list and reported, "Grandmaster, this junior martial brother is called Imo Xiaoyang, a disciple of Sweet Du Peak. He's 45 years old and built his foundation when he was 25. Oh." Lord Daoist Lingxi narrowed his eyes. "It's rare for him to enter the middle stage in less than 20 years. Does he have a master?" This question showed that he was interested in him. The disciple was envious and jealous, so he answered, "No master." A trace of doubt flashed in Lord Daoist Lingxi's eyes. "His aptitude is not bad, his willpower is even better, and his cultivation level is advancing fast. Why doesn't he have a master?" This disciple doesn't know." Lord Daoist Lingxi naturally didn't expect this foundation-building disciple to answer. Not far away, Dao-Seeking Palace's skill-imparting elder heard this and stood up to answer. "Martial uncle, this Mo Xiaoyang doesn't have a master because his temper is too violent. Back when he was in the aura refining realm, he accidentally killed a fellow disciple, so, why?" Lord Daoist Lingxi's expression turned serious. Killing a fellow disciple was the sect's prohibition. No matter how outstanding your aptitude was, if you violated this prohibition, you would be expelled from the sect, not to mention being accepted as a disciple by a nascent soul Dao Lord. It was a disciple who used his family's power to deliberately bully others. Mo Xiaoyang was too impulsive and used too much force. "I see." Lord Daoist Lingxi nodded. "In that case, he can't be blamed." "Yes." Seeing that Lord Daoist Lingxi was quite interested in this disciple, skill-imparting elder echoed, "The sect forbids killing fellow disciples. If he was in the wrong, he would have been expelled from the sect long ago. But his temper is really a headache." Back then, several junior martial brothers were also interested in him, but in the end, they thought it was better to temper his temper. Chapter 656. Junior martial brother Mo, please come with me. When Mo Xiaoyang stepped down from the stage, a steward flew down from the cloud platform and said in an official tone. All the disciples were filled with envy and jealousy when they saw this scene. All of them understood what this meant. Someone must have taken a fancy to Mo Xiaoyang's performance and intended to take him as a disciple, so they summoned him for questioning. As long as he seized this opportunity and performed well, he would be able to ascend to the heavens in a single bound and become the disciple of a high-level cultivator. Mo Xiaoyang was expressionless. He followed the steward and flew to the cloud platform. Greetings to the three grandmasters and martial uncles. He was a little surprised to be led to the three nascent soul lord Daoists, but he didn't panic. He didn't lack etiquette, but he didn't show too much respect on his face. Lord Daoist Lingxi didn't mind at all and still said with a smile, Mo Xiaoyang, I have a question to ask you after watching your fight. Mo Xiaoyang bowed. Yes, please ask, Grandmaster. Lord Daoist Lingxi said, which do you think is more important? Temperament or aptitude? Mo Xiaoyang was stunned. He thought for a while and answered, temperament. Oh. Lord Daoist Lingxi was quite surprised. Many people thought that aptitude was more important, but most nascent soul Lord Taoists would think about it and say the two were equally important. She didn't expect Mo Xiaoyang to say temperament was more important. Why? Mo Xiaoyang answered, there's no reason. The Grand Masters in our sect may not have super strong aptitude, but they certainly have extraordinary temperament. Lord Daoist Lingxi looked at them and said with a smile, among the 8 nascent soul cultivators in our sect, 5 have single spiritual roots. As for the remaining 3, one of them has a spiritual root of the origin, which is better than a single spiritual root. How do you explain this? Mo Xiaoyang said, Grandmaster Shoujing has double spiritual roots, but he was the first genius cultivator to form his gold core in Xianqing school. Moreover, he formed his nascent soul at the age of 211. Grandmaster Lingxi, you have a single spiritual root, so you can't compare with Grandmaster Shoujing in terms of gold core or nascent soul. Grandmaster Huayan's aptitude is worse than Grandmaster Shoujing's, but he still reached the nascent soul realm. Grandmaster Zhifei of Morning Sun Peak has a single spiritual root, but he still hasn't formed his nascent soul realm. Dao Lord Lingxi laughed. You really dare to say that? Mo Xiaoyang continued, based on these 3 things, it's clear that those who reach the nascent soul realm don't necessarily have high aptitudes, but all of them have excellent temperaments. Dao Lord Rhinoceros smiled and said, those with talent but no temperament were all eliminated, right? Mo Xiaoyang hesitated for a moment before nodding. Yes. Then have you ever thought that those with no aptitude and temperament would have been eliminated even earlier? Mo Xiaoyang hesitated even longer. Dao Lord Rhinoceros simply smiled at him. Grandmaster is saying. Mo Xiaoyang said with some difficulty, aptitude is actually more important than temperament. Dao Lord Lingxi shook his head. I didn't say anything. You don't need me to answer this question. Mo Xiaoyang remained silent. Mo Xiaoyang. After a long silence, Dao Lord Rhinoceros suddenly asked, are you willing to take me as your master and become my disciple? Although he knew the deacon called him up because someone was interested in him and might even accept him as a disciple, Mo Xiaoyang was still surprised to hear Dao Lord Rhinoceros ask him such a straightforward question. He didn't expect it to be a nascent soul grandmaster. He also didn't expect the other party to directly accept him as a disciple without testing him again and again. Seeing that he didn't answer for a long time, Dao Lord Rhinoceros raised her eyebrows. What? You don't want to? Mo Xiaoyang regained his composure. He suddenly lifted his robe and knelt down. Grandmaster Rhinoceros, please forgive me. Disciple once had a wish. Before I answer Grandmaster, I want to ask Grandmaster Qingwei a question first. Dao Lord Rhinoceros found it quite interesting and nodded. Okay. Mo Xiaoyang raised his head and stared at Mo Tiange. Something flashed in his eyes, like admiration and desire. He said, may I ask if Grandmaster Qingwei still remembers disciple? The Mo Xiaoyang in front of him looked like he was in his early 20s. He had a regular face and a fierce expression at the tip of his eyebrows and the corner of his eyes, so he wasn't handsome. However, the fierceness he exuded was exactly the same as in Mo Xiaoyang's memory. Mo Tiange nodded calmly. I remember, but I didn't expect your surname to be Mo Xiaoyang said. That day, Disciple was saved by Grandmaster, so Disciple was able to escape. When I entered the sect, Disciple asked Martial Uncle Yunyu how I could become Grandmaster Qingwei's disciple. Martial Uncle replied that I could become the most powerful disciple in Xianqing school. All these years, Disciple has been working hard and never slacking off. However, the more I know, the more I realize I don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. All these years, not to mention nascent soul Lord Taoists, even core formation Taoists are unwilling to accept me as a disciple. Now that Grandmaster Rhinoceros wants to accept disciple knows this is a chance to change my fate. But before that, disciple wants to ask Grandmaster, is Grandmaster willing to accept me as a disciple? On the cloud platform, all the cultivators who heard him looked at him with astonishment. Xianqing School had been established for so many years, but they had never heard of a nascent Soul Lord Taoist asking a disciple whether or not he was willing to accept him as a disciple. This Mo Xiaoyang was really too bold and thought too highly of himself. Mo Tiange's eyes were also filled with astonishment. She cast a glance at Lord Taoist Rhinoceros, who had been smiling all along, and asked, "Do you know that Senior Marshal Brother Lingxi wants to accept you as a disciple not only because you're compatible with his temperament, but also because you're suitable to cultivate his cultivation technique? If you accept me as your master, I'll at most ask for a cultivation technique for you, but I can't give you pointers like he does." "Disciple knows," Mo Xiaoyang said calmly. "But this has been disciple's wish for several decades. I have to ask before I'm willing to turn to someone else." Mo Tiange glanced at Lord Taoist Rhinoceros and said, "I have no intention of accepting a disciple." Mo Xiaoyang exhaled, kowtowed to her, and turned to Lord Taoist Rhinoceros. "Grandmaster Lingxi, disciple is willing." Lord Taoist Rhinoceros didn't answer immediately. Instead, he said with a smile, "You asked her first and then replied to me. Isn't this telling others that in your heart, becoming my disciple isn't the best choice? If that's the case, would I still be willing to accept you as my disciple?" Mo Xiaoyang lowered his head and said, "If Grandmaster Lingxi changes your mind, disciple has nothing to say. Even so, would you still ask her just now?" "Yes." Mo Xiaoyang didn't hesitate at all. Lord Taoist Rhinoceros nodded. "Go. Someone will notify you later. Disciple will take her leave." Mo Xiaoyang kowtowed again and retreated without any rudeness. After a while, Mo Tiange asked, "Does Senior Marshal Brother Lingxi want to accept a disciple or not?" Lord Taoist Rhinoceros answered, "Junior Marshal Sister Qingwei really doesn't want to accept a disciple, or does she want me to accept her?" The two of them looked at each other and laughed together. Lord Taoist Rhinoceros said, he said without hesitation that temperament is important, which means temperament is more important in his heart. His aptitude isn't bad, so it can be considered a pass. Temperament is only good for him. Moreover, what I value more is that he can face his heart directly. Even under the pressure of the three of us, he can still face his heart. Relatively speaking, having a violent temper isn't a big disadvantage. Nascent soul cultivators like them all knew that the first important point of the Great Tao was to face one's heart directly. Mo Xiaoyang had already achieved this point, which meant that his chances of stepping on the Great Tao in the future were much higher than those of ordinary people. Also, Qin Shi, who had been watching from the side, said, "He's not inflexible. He values ideals, but he won't die with them." "Yes." Lord Taoist Rhinoceros said with a smile, "A firm belief is necessary, but it can't be the same. If you don't know how to size up the situation, you'll also be eliminated by reality." In short, congratulations to Senior Marshal Brother Lingxi for accepting a good disciple. Mo Tiange cupped her hands. "Congratulations." On the first day of the competition, Lord Taoist Rhinoceros accepted a disciple. This news inspired many disciples and made them even more enthusiastic about the competition. 5 days later, all the foundation building disciples finished competing. There were about a dozen disciples who successfully worshipped high-level cultivators as their masters. Unfortunately, the others were all core formation masters. Mo Xiaoyang was the only one who worshipped a nascent soul lord Taoist. The disciples were disappointed but also envious. They were thinking about the next competition and worried that they would be too old to enter the eyes of a nascent soul grandmaster, next was the competition for core formation cultivators. Under normal circumstances, the competition was the only opportunity to watch core formation cultivators fight. Therefore, not only were there not many people on the main peak, but there were also more. There were about 20 core formation cultivators participating in the competition this time. The fights between core formation cultivators were much more detailed, so there would probably be more than a dozen fights until the final round. The intensity of fights between core formation cultivators was also much higher, so there were at most 3 fights per day. In total, it would take 5 or 6 days for the competition to end. When the competition was completely over, it would be the opening day of the 10,000 Laws of Nature formation. All foundation building cultivators who entered the sect within 50 years had to enter the 10,000 Laws of Nature formation. No matter how she thought about it, she still had to be busy for more than 10 days. Mo Tiange simply stopped cultivating and prepared to spend this period of time leisurely. When the core formation cultivators competition began, Mo Tiange was surprised to find that Lord Daoist Miaoi's disciple, Wu Feishuang, had already formed her gold core. During the trip to the Eastern Sea, she lost one of her arms and was seriously injured. Huang Zhu said it would take her about 10 to 20 years to fully recover. Including the time it took to form her gold core, it had only been 30 years since then. Out of curiosity, she asked and found out the reason was because of her. Back then, she took out a lot of spiritual plants and spiritual pills to shorten the time Wu Feishuang needed to recuperate. Later, she obtained enough medicinal pills and concentrated on cultivating. In 20 years, she broke through and formed her gold core in one fell swoop. Mo Tiange sighed and said, even so, she must have accumulated a lot to be able to enter the core formation realms so smoothly. Qin, she said faintly, I have to thank Jifei. If it weren't for him, it wouldn't have been so easy to sever the entanglement. Thinking about Bai Yanfei, who was still struggling in the core formation realm, Mo Tiange couldn't help but sigh. What was even more shocking was that Wu Feishuang's opponent was actually Jiang Min. Mo Tiange watched as the two of them met in the fighting arena. Both of them looked calm, just like they did in the past. They politely called each other senior and junior martial sisters, and their attitudes were friendly but not deliberately intimate. Presumably, they'd already let go of Bai Yanfei. Mo Tiange couldn't help but sigh for Bai Yanfei again. If he still couldn't let go, he would lose to them. Chapter 657. The wind from the north swept over with yellow sand, and the whole mountain was covered in sand and rustling. Langtu Mountain was like this all year round. Only a few rare rainy days could prevent the yellow sand from filling the sky. No one knew when it started, but the yellow sand here always carried a strange black aura. Once contaminated, mortals would immediately die, and even cultivators would be corroded. Many cultivators in the Celestial Pole knew that Langtu Mountain was one of the 3 most dangerous places in the extreme west, but almost no one knew that it was the abode of the number 1 cultivator in the Celestial Pole. In the sky full of sand, a black-clothed man leisurely stepped onto Langtu Mountain, ignoring the yellow sand as he walked step by step toward the belly of the mountain. There was a place in the belly of the mountain that was buried by yellow sand, but nascent soul cultivators could feel different auras coming from there. The black-clothed man stopped, made a complicated hand seal, and pushed gently. A deep cave suddenly appeared, and he walked in. Who? A gloomy shout came from the dark abode. The black-clothed man stopped and sighed softly. Master, you're so confident in yourself that you didn't even change the method to open the door. Her clear and pleasant voice was completely different from the hoarseness of the past. Master Song Feng paused for a moment, and devil aura suddenly surged in the gloomy cave. It's you. His voice was tense, and every word was full of anger. It's me. Nia Wushang gently waved her sleeves, and the devil aura around her became calm. Sensing her aura, Master Song Feng was shocked and angry. You're actually in the middle stage of nascent soul. How long has it been? Where did you get the technique? He unconsciously touched his Qinquan bag, and the Prime Devil Steel was still there. The Prime Devil technique in your hands isn't the only one in the world, Nia Wushang said with a smile. Master has been awe-inspiring for so long that he seems to have forgotten to be vigilant. Master Song Feng naturally didn't forget that several great cultivators besieged him in Sandstorm City several decades ago. He was even forced to give up his body and return to Langtu Mountain, always vigilant. But he never expected this bitch to have the guts to come back. Do you think you can challenge me just because you're in the middle stage of nascent soul? I don't dare, Nia Wushang said faintly. That's why I came back before you recovered. You're smart. Master Song Feng sneered. But you're too confident. Really? Nia Wushang didn't care about his attitude at all. She suddenly asked, Master, do you want to know where I got my primordial devil great technique? Master Song Feng didn't answer right away. After a while, a cold snort came from the devil aura. What are you planning? Nia Wushang showed a faint smile. I just want to tell you how narrow-minded you are. As soon as she finished speaking, the devil aura inside the cave seemed to sense Master Song Feng's mood and fluctuated, but the devil aura couldn't get close to her. Master Song Feng seemed to have noticed it, so the devil aura carried a bit of pressure and slowly pressed toward Nia Wushang. It's useless. Nia Wushang always had a smile on her face. She slightly raised her head, carrying with her a contempt that she would never have in the past. Master, do you still not understand? I'm no longer the Nia Wushang who you can bully, who doesn't dare to say a word, do a thing, or show an expression. The gloomy cave and the pitch-black devil aura made her skin look fairer and her face as white as snow. Master Song Feng was in a trance for a moment. He seemed to see traces of another person on her face, and he clenched his teeth. After a long time, he asked solemnly, Where did you get your primordial devil great technique? Nia Wushang chuckled. You finally asked. She paused and said, Then have you ever thought that since there's a white tiger sacrificial temple, is there an azure dragon, vermilion bird, and black tortoise? Master Song Feng was stunned. It wasn't that he didn't think about this back then, but he was already very lucky to find a sacrificial temple. How could he find another one? Could it be that this B*TCH really had such a lucky chance? Thinking of this possibility, Master Song Feng felt very upset. In this world, you're not the only one who practices the primordial devil great technique. As far as I know, there are 2 other people besides us. One was Yang Qingji, and the other was that unlucky Mei Feng, the Lord of Descending Star City who was killed. Master, you're indeed a rare cultivation genius in the world, but unfortunately, you went the wrong way at the beginning. When you comprehended the real primordial devil great technique, it was already too late. Nia Wushang's tone was gentle and calm, and she spoke at a moderate speed as if she didn't care about him at all. This made Master Song Feng very unhappy. When did the girl who always trembled with fear beside him become like this? She became someone who dared to challenge him and became someone he couldn't control. Are you trying to say you went the right way? Nia Wushang raised the corner of her mouth. I don't know if I went the right way, but you definitely went the wrong way. She raised her eyebrows. Do you think it's very unfair? We both practiced the primordial devil great technique, but you still can't have a complete body after giving up your corporeal body and seizing it again, while I'm not affected at all. Humph. Master Song Feng's heart stirred slightly, but he just snorted coldly. Nia Wushang ignored him and continued, First, you took a detour before. Second, maybe you didn't notice that the primordial devil great technique doesn't only cultivate primordial devil aura. The gloomy cave was silent. No one knew what Master Song Feng was feeling at the moment. Nia Wushang's voice rang quietly. Master, you've entered the nascent soul realm for so many years, but why haven't you broken through? Is it because your cultivation level isn't high enough, or you can't break through at all? Master Song Feng, who was in the dark, was greatly shocked. He shouted, "What did you say?" With a chuckle, Nia Wushang said, "I didn't understand before, but after practicing the primordial devil great technique and slowly thinking about the past, I realized." Her gaze shifted to the figure in the dark. Master, is it because your corporeal body can't bear the burden after you entered the nascent soul realm, so you cultivated primordial devil aura cloud and tried to replace your corporeal body? Her voice was very calm, but it made Master Song Feng feel an aggressive sharpness, and the content of her words frightened him even more. When did the girl who was by his side, carefully seeking a slim chance of survival, become like this? It seems I guessed right. After waiting for a long time for no answer, Nia Wushang smiled. You comprehended the wrong technique at the beginning, giving the dead aura a chance to corrode your corporeal body. If you made a prompt decision to seize a body to be reborn, you could have cut off all hidden dangers. Unfortunately, you didn't know at that time. By the time you realized something was wrong, it was already too late. The dead aura even corroded your primordial spirit. A smile hung on Nia Wushang's face, but her gaze became sharper and sharper. So, even if you seized a body, you're still a skeleton. As soon as he finished speaking, the devil chi suddenly spread out, forcing away the original aura, revealing a figure sitting cross-legged on a stone platform. This figure was so thin that he could barely hang on to his clothes. When he raised his face, there was a mixture of blood-red rotten flesh and white bones, creating a nauseating scene. Master, long time no see, Nia Wushang said softly. Humph. Primordial devil aura surged again, attaching to the skeleton. Before long, it once again turned into a black cloud, looking exactly the same as Master Song Feng's usual appearance. Right after that, a powerful aura spread out and pressed down on Nia Wushang. Nia Wushang's eyes were cold. She made a hand seal with both hands and mobilized the devil aura to resist Master Song Feng's spiritual pressure. You're really her daughter, Master Song Feng said hoarsely. I underestimated you. Nia Wushang's heart stirred, and she slowly asked, Master, it's been so many years. Have you ever thought about my mother? The primordial devil aura in the cave fluctuated imperceptibly. Nia Wushang continued, when you beat and tortured me, were you thinking about my mother? Shut up. Master Song Feng shouted in a low voice. If you want to die faster, continue talking. Nia Wushang smiled. Do I look a bit like my mother? That's why every time you tortured me, you called me a bitch. Unfortunately, you won't be able to scold my mother. Do you regret killing her so decisively? The devil aura surged more violently, and Master Song Feng's voice rang out in a low voice. What do I regret? That bitch received her retribution long ago. She had an affair behind my back, but unfortunately, that man didn't take responsibility at all. How do you think I found you and your mother? That man told me himself. Nia Wushang's gaze changed, and her smile disappeared. But don't worry, I've already killed him. People like him deserve to die. Ha ha, ha ha ha. Master Song Feng burst into laughter. The sound of the skeleton and the gloomy tone made it sound like an evil ghost crawling out of hell, making people's hair stand on end. Nia Wushang suddenly curled her lips into a smile, obviously imitating Jing Xingji's actions. She said mockingly, then I really have to thank you. This kind of man indeed deserves to die. If he's still alive, I'll take his life with my own hands. Her gaze fell on Master Song Feng again. Master, why do you have to do this? With your current appearance, you're neither a human nor a ghost. You can't break through to the late nascent soul realm and advance to the deification realm so that your primordial spirit can unite with your body and get rid of the death aura. You also can't kill your enemies as you please, so why are you still alive? Your enemies are getting stronger, but you're slowly losing your vitality. Even if I didn't come back, your lifespan would have come to an end in a few hundred years. You'll have no hope in this life. What? You want to attack me with this? Master Song Feng was unmoved. Bitch, you're still too inexperienced. I'm just stating a fact. Nia Wushang put on a pair of boxing gloves and said slowly, "You're like the sun setting in the western mountains, about to turn into a tree. Accept your fate." Right after she said that, primordial devil aura gathered in her fists and punched out. The primordial devil aura in the cave surged violently like waves, making it hard to tell who it belonged to. Master Song Feng, who had already turned into a black cloud again, snorted coldly and said, "Naive." On the black cloud, Master Song Feng raised a small flag. "You rashly ran into someone else's cave and still want to kill them." He waved the small flag, but there was no movement at all. Master Song Feng was startled and stared at the small flag in his hand. This was a formation flag without a doubt, and it didn't lose its effect, so why, you're right. Since I dared to come in, how could I not be confident? As Nia Wushang spoke, several magic crystals soaked in death aura flashed in the eye of the formation. Chapter 658. Suddenly, a black demonic cloud burst forth from Langtu Mountain. Its might was magnificent and its momentum was powerful. Not only did it cover the entirety of Langtu Mountain, it even crossed the southern end of the western mountain range and extended all the way to the Kunwa mountain range. Inside the black devil aura, two people could be vaguely seen confronting each other. One was dressed in black and looked somewhat petite, while the other was hidden in the black clouds, so their appearances couldn't be seen clearly. Master. Nia Wushang stared fixedly at the person in the black clouds. Admit defeat. Although I've just reached the middle stage, you haven't fully recovered from your serious injuries, and your body isn't compatible. You can't beat me. A cold snort came from the black clouds. Master Song Feng said gloomily, "Bitch, do you think I don't know? Even so, your strength is still inferior to mine. You're just using words to provoke me, that's all." As soon as he finished speaking, the black clouds suddenly swelled up. A destructive aura emerged from the originally gloomy darkness, transforming into many terrifying devils that tore at Nia Wushang. Nia Wushang didn't move, but a ribbon burning with black flames appeared in front of her and went to meet those devils. Upon seeing this, Master Song Feng's black clouds suddenly swayed. "Bitch!" A voice came from the black clouds. "I've raised you for so many years in vain. If you hadn't stolen my treasure, how could I have fallen into this situation?" The treasure Nia Wushang used to defend herself was precisely from Master Song Feng. She clenched her teeth behind the ribbon, resisting the invasion of the devils. She sneered and said, "Could it be that you still want to settle accounts with me? Such a ridiculous thing doesn't seem like something you'd do, Master." He didn't want to talk to her about the kindness of sparing her life and raising her to adulthood. Life wasn't a clear account of income and expenditure. After adding and subtracting, the kindness and enmity could be offset. She only knew that her mother died in his hands, and her life was also ruined in his hands. Such enmity was engraved in her bones day and night. Master Song Feng didn't say anything. In a flash, 3 black lines flew out from the devil clouds and entangled Nia Wushang. A huge black flower suddenly bloomed between Nia Wushang's hands. The petals unfolded and surrounded her whole body. The 3 black lines hit the flower petals and stopped. The 2 sides began to wrestle. Right now, Nia Wuxiang was under unimaginable pressure. Those 3 black threads were Master Song Feng's secret technique, which took him several hundred years to nurture. Each thread carried the power of primordial devil that could shake one's primordial spirit. Every time he used it, he would consume his own cultivation, so Master Song Feng wouldn't use it easily. But today, not only did he use this technique, but he even used all 3 techniques at the same time. It could be seen that he hated Nia Wuxiang to the bone. Under the black lines, the flower petals on Nia Wuxiang's body became fainter and fainter. Gradually, her silhouette was revealed. The moment the petals dissipated and the black thread was about to penetrate her body, Nia Wuxiang suddenly disappeared. At the same time, an earth-shattering punch smashed onto Master Song Feng's body from the sky. Kacha! The sound of bones being hit rang out, and Master Song Feng fell down. Nia Wuxiang's silhouette appeared in the void, and she also followed after him. The 2 of them landed on Langtu Mountain one after the other. The devil cloud on Master Song Feng's body swayed, and a lot of his devil aura dissipated. *TCH, I should thank you for this, Master, Nia Wuxiang said. The phantom shape-shifting talisman was something you snatched from a nascent soul cultivator back then. Humph. Master Song Feng naturally knew. The Qinkuan bag that was stolen from him back then contained all important spiritual treasures. As a result, not only did he have no treasures to use today, but he was also seriously injured by his own treasures. This little *TCH, looking at Nia Wuxiang's ice-cold face, Master Song Feng gritted his teeth so hard that they made cracking sounds. Just as she guessed, he was forced to give up his physical body in Sandstorm City, so he had no choice but to take over her body. Back then, he comprehended the wrong cultivation technique, so he didn't take over her body. One reason was that his primordial spirit had already been eroded by the dead aura, so taking over her body wouldn't solve the problem. The other reason was that he left himself some hope. He could only take over someone's body once in his lifetime. One day, he could expel all the dead aura and take over someone's body again. By then, he would have a brand new body and hope to advance to the deification realm. But what about now? If he hadn't discovered this *TCH had returned to the celestial pole, how could he have gone to Sandstorm City? How could he have been besieged by those old guys? How could he have given up his physical body? How could he have been forced to take over someone's body? How could he have lost all hope of advancing to the deification realm? It was all because of this *TCH. I really regret that I didn't kill you back then. Master Song Feng said word by word. Nia Wuxiang laughed. Yeah, if you had killed me back then, how could there have been so many troubles? Unfortunately, it's useless even if you regret it. A devil cloud rose from her hand. Compared to Master Song Feng, Nia Wuxiang's devil cloud wasn't as strong, but it was also a lot cleaner. It was just pure primordial devil aura. This made Master Song Feng even more resentful. All of this originally belonged to him. After he lost control of his shout, his devil aura surged up violently like ocean waves. Once Nia Wuxiang saw this scene, she immediately knew that Master Song Feng had been stimulated to the point of madness by her. He originally didn't cultivate his mental state, and the wrong primordial devil great technique distorted his mind, cutting off his hope of advancing to the deification realm. Coupled with Nia Wuxiang's repeated blows, he finally fell into a demonic barrier. I'll kill you. A gloomy voice carrying a murderous aura rolled up the devil aura and yellow sand, attacking Nia Wuxiang all at once. Nia Wuxiang wasn't stingy at all. Spirit treasures appeared in her hands one after another to resist Master Song Feng's attack. The devil aura fluttered her black clothes, and the yellow sand covered the sky and covered the earth, but she didn't dare to relax in the slightest. Empress Origin was Empress Origin after all. Although she deliberately provoked and looked down on her master with words, she knew in her heart that even if her master was seriously injured and his body wasn't compatible with hers due to the failure of possession, she still couldn't resist him head-on. This was the #1 cultivator in the celestial pole. She knew this better than anyone else. Therefore, she could only drag it out. As long as she dragged it out, the final winner would be her. In the primordial devil aura cloud, yellow sand rustled and rocks rolled down. Lang Tu Mountain almost collapsed. Nia Wushang clenched her teeth and held on. Magic treasures and spirit talismans were thrown out one by one to meet Master Song Fang's devil cloud, but they exploded one after another. Every time, she had an illusion that she couldn't hold on any longer, but when she thought of the humiliation she suffered for more than 100 years, she held on. The injuries on her body became more and more serious. She held the devil talisman she'd prepared a long time ago and indirectly replenished her devil aura. What did this count for? She was no longer the Nia Wushang who was bullied and humiliated but couldn't resist. She had friends, she could straighten her back, she could walk under the sun, and she wanted to have her own life. She wanted to personally erase this person who left a shadow in her heart and didn't even dare to breathe. She crushed the devil talisman countless times to replenish her devil aura and threw out countless spiritual treasures to resist the attacks. Finally, the spiritual aura pressure on her body slowly weakened. When the attack stopped, Nia Wushang's spirit was shaken. She put her hands together, and a huge devil crystal appeared in her hands, flashing with a strange aura of death. With a light flick, the devil crystal flew out. Although it was moving at a slow speed, it quickly appeared next to Master Song Feng. Master Song Feng sneered. "You want to fight back like this? In your dreams." The corners of Nia Wushang's mouth rose, revealing a sneer. Primordial devil gathered on her fist, and she silently punched out. Master Song Feng waved his hand, and the devil cloud wrapped around him, casually blocking it. Unexpectedly, in the next moment, Nia Wushang's fist penetrated the devil cloud and hit his body. Master Song Fang's eyes widened in disbelief. "Impossible, how could this be?" Watching him fall heavily, Nia Wushang said faintly, "Master, there are 3,000 Daos, but not all of them are the same." The devil cloud dispersed, revealing a skeleton-like body with a terrifying face and 2 eyes staring at her. He still didn't believe her. "How could this be? You? Why did I lose?" Nia Wushang stared at him. "Do you really want to know?" Master Song Feng didn't close his eyes. Nia Wushang said, "When I set foot on Lang Tu Mountain, I started to arrange the devil crystal. Master, you probably don't know, but this devil crystal doesn't only have death aura. Everyone in Yunzhong is afraid of it because it has a strange effect. It absorbs people's spiritual essence." Seeing Master Song Feng lying on the ground desperately trying to stand up, Nia Wushang said with pity, "Master, your body is broken, your primordial spirit is also entangled by death aura, and your own spiritual essence is insufficient. If it weren't for your profound cultivation level, the spiritual essence of your soul wouldn't have been able to support you to survive. I kept provoking you for 2 reasons. One was to make you underestimate the enemy, and the other was to stall for time so the devil crystal could absorb your spiritual essence." It turns out. A strange expression appeared on Master Song Fang's badly mutilated face. He seemed to be smiling. "You are really her daughter." This was the second time he said this, but his tone was different. The first time, it was resentment, but this time, it was yearning. He said faintly, "That's fine. It's better to die in the hands of your daughter than to die silently, neither human nor ghost. Ding, in your next life, what's the use of your current appearance?" Nia Wushang looked at him, feeling for the first time that he was so weak. "Why didn't you tell my mother when she was alive?" Master Song Feng let out a strange laugh and said, "She betrayed me." "That's right, how could there be a woman who would love me with my current appearance? Was my mother that kind of person?" Nia Wushang interrupted him and said coldly, "Was the woman you loved deeply, the only woman in your life, that kind of person? Although I don't remember what happened before I was 3 years old, I don't believe it." Master Song Feng's eyes widened. His eyeballs, which almost popped out of his eye sockets, looked more and more disgusting and terrifying. "Master," Nia Wushang said softly, "you've always kept my mother's stone room in the cave. You didn't allow anyone to step in, didn't let anyone mention her, and even punished senior martial brother when he scolded her. Master, you've always loved my mother, haven't you?" He had no lips, and his teeth were exposed. It could be clearly seen that he was trembling. "Would the woman you loved so deeply leave you for such a reason? She's been with you for several thousand years, would she leave you just like that?" Nia Wushang said coldly, "Instead of blaming her, you'd better blame yourself. Even in your next life, she wouldn't want to meet you like this again." Master Song Feng absent-mindedly looked at the yellow sand all over the sky. More than 1,000 years flashed past his eyes. Stepping on the path of immortality, becoming an ordinary disciple, having his sect destroyed, demonic mountain, fated chances, stone tablets, comprehending the wrong cultivation technique, body festering. Yes, when he met Ying, he was already in that state. She wouldn't leave him because of this. It was he who doubted her and pushed her away step by step. As it turned out, his life was a complete failure. He couldn't enter the deification realm, and he destroyed her with his own hands. Such a failed life. Then let it end like this. Chapter 659. When she received Nia Wushang's 10,000-mile sound-transmitting talisman, Mo Tiange was shocked because she only added 2 words, "Save me," and the location was actually Mount Lang 2. She once confirmed from Nia Wushang's wounds that Master Song Feng's secret cave was on Mount Lang Tuesday. "I have to go to Mount Lang 2. Mo Tiange said after putting down the talisman. "What's wrong?" She was surprised. Mount Lang 2 isn't an ordinary place. Wushang is asking for help. "She's on Mount Lang 2, Mo Tiange said succinctly and stood up to prepare. She was startled, but he quickly understood the key point. "Wait. Let Master go with you." Mo Tiange paused and didn't try to be brave. "Okay." Mount Taikang and Xianqing School had established a transporting formation, so Lord Daoist Jinghe came back very quickly. After receiving the message, he returned to the sect in less than 4 hours. Upon hearing Mo Tiange's words, he said without any nonsense, "Let's go." With a late nascent soul cultivator accompanying her, Mo Tiange was very confident and entered Mount Lang 2 in less than 2 days. Mount Lang 2 was called Mount Lang 2 because it was shaped like a running wolf. The current Mount Lang 2 was unrecognizable. The place where the wolf's head used to be was bare, and the cliff where the tail used to be was also gone. Devil aura pervaded everywhere, and the connected Shiling mountain range was the first to suffer. Flowers, plants, and trees were all corroded by the devil aura mixed with dead aura. Lord Daoist Jinghe waved his sleeves, flinging away the yellow sand. He complained, "What's old man Song Feng doing? Is he afraid people won't know he's here?" Mo Tiange opened the lotus umbrella, isolating the surrounding devil aura. "It seems Wushang came back to take revenge." Lord Daoist Jinghe agreed. Mount Lang 2 clearly experienced a great battle. That girl. She must be very strong to be able to fight with old man Song Feng like this. Lord Daoist Jinghe sighed, frowned, and landed somewhere. "Master. Come." Lord Daoist Jinghe only said one word. Mo Tiange shut her mouth and soon found something was wrong. After landing on the yellow sand, Lord Daoist Jinghe flicked his sleeves. The sand was blown away, revealing two people, or rather, a person and a skeleton. This is Old Man Song Feng. Lord Daoist Jinghe stared at the skeleton in astonishment. Although its devil aura hadn't dissipated yet, it was obviously dead, even its body had rotted away. Wu Shang. Upon seeing the other person, Mo Tiange hastily rushed towards him. Nia Wushang's complexion was deathly pale. Her whole body was stiff as if she was dead, and her devil aura gathered without condensing. This girl is amazing. Lord Daoist Jinghe clicked his tongue in admiration. Even I couldn't kill Old Man Song Feng, but she actually did it. Mo Tiange didn't have time to express her thoughts. Just as she was about to check Nia Wushang's pulse to examine the condition of her meridians, she suddenly remembered that Nia Wushang was a devil cultivator. She didn't know much about devil cultivators, so she had no way to use her spiritual aura to examine Nia Wushang's meridians. After being stunned for a while, she asked, "Master, what should we do about this?" Mo Tiange's request for help made Lord Daoist Jinghe extremely proud. Master still needs to step in at a critical moment. Just you wait. As he spoke, his eyes flickered. After sweeping a glance at Nia Wushang's body, he retracted his technique and returned to his normal state. She's fine. Although her injuries are a bit heavy, they didn't damage her nascent soul. She'll probably recover after resting for 30 to 50 years. 30 to 50 years. That's not counting external objects. If she has healing medicinal pills like devil cores, she'll probably recover in 10 to 20 years. Mo Tiange nodded. Then let's take her back. Lord Daoist Jinghe didn't answer immediately. He stared at her a few times before he finally said, "Girl, you really treat her differently. She's a devil cultivator and also Old Man Song Feng's disciple. You actually want to take her back to the sect to recuperate?" Mo Tiange said, "What else? Do you want to see her die here?" "Master, you don't think it's good?" Lord Daoist Jinghe thought for a while. "It's fine. That old man Jinyang won't dare to have any objections." After a few words, the master and disciple decided to take Nia Wushang back to Xianqing School. When they arrived at Xianqing School, Lord Daoist Jinghe didn't manage anything and went to Kuanzhong City. Mo Tiange opened a stone room and stuffed Nia Wushang inside. She couldn't help devil cultivators recuperate. "How is it?" Qin Shi asked after she settled Nia Wushang and returned to the cultivation room. Mo Tiange said, "She killed Master Song Feng." "What?" Qin Shi thought he misheard. Mo Tiange repeated herself. "She killed Master Song Feng, so she's seriously injured." Qin Shi slowly came to his senses, but he still felt it was unbelievable. She really killed Master Song Feng. I sense her cultivation just now. She's just in the middle stage. How did she kill him? I don't know about this. Let's ask her when she wakes up. Mo Tiange thought for a while. After all, she followed Master Song Feng for so many years. Maybe she knows his unknown weakness. Qin Shi nodded and pointed at the table. Let's not talk about her for now. Take a look at this. Mo Tiange saw several things on the table. One was spirit-tempering water, the second was spirit-absorbing powder from the fallen god Abyss, and the third was the crystal they got from the storeroom of a great ancient sect next to the White Tiger sacrificial temple. Spirit-tempering water aside, they still hadn't figured out how to use the spirit-absorbing powder, let alone the crystal. They asked many people, but no one knew what it was. What? Qin Shi didn't say anything. He picked up the spirit-tempering water and dripped it on the crystal. There was already a small hole on the crystal. When the spirit-tempering water dripped on it, the hole slowly melted. When the cup of spirit-tempering water was finished, a hole was formed. It turns out it's just a shell. Tienga looked at the top of the crystal, which had been melted by the spirit-tempering water. There was something like mist and water inside. It didn't have any spiritual aura, but it had an extremely mysterious aura. What's this? She glanced at the piles of books and jade slips on the side. We were misled. We didn't even know what it was, so how could we find out what it was? After realizing this, I flipped through the ancient books and found it might be something else. What is it? Primal Chaos Aura, she said, the beginning of heaven and earth. Tienga didn't speak for a long time. She was dumbfounded. After a while, she found her voice. According to what you said, even in the immortal world, Primal Chaos Aura is a top-grade treasure. How could it fall into the human world? She shook his head. It's meaningless to investigate this. Take another look. As he spoke, he took several spirit stones and threw them into the crystal. Then, the gas melted at a speed visible to the naked eye and disappeared without a trace. Just like this, almost everything can be melted. Really? Tienga's expression became serious. She took out several unimportant materials from her Qinquan ring and threw them into the crystal. Sure enough, all of them disappeared without a trace. After watching for a while, she suddenly said, Spirit-sucking powder can absorb any spell, and this primal chaos aura can melt anything. What would happen if I put them together? She smiled. That's exactly what I was thinking, but you came back before I could try it. Then let's try it quickly. She nodded. Seeing that the crystal enveloping the primal chaos aura had somewhat healed, he took the spirit-tempering water and melted it again. Turns out this thing can grow automatically. Tienga seemed to have understood something. No wonder it can be used to contain primal chaos aura. After melting the outer crystal, she carefully wrapped some primal chaos aura with his spiritual aura, making it float in the air. Then he sprinkled some spirit-sucking powder on it. The sizzling sound was endless, as if it was boiling and burning. The spirit-sucking powder and the primal chaos aura entangled and devoured each other as if they were fighting fiercely. The two of them stared at it without blinking. Before long, the sound gradually weakened. From the bottom to the top, the primal chaos aura became transparent like ice crystals. In the end, it became a crystal. After a long silence, Tienga knocked the outer shell containing the primal chaos aura. So this thing is made of spirit-sucking powder? She also touched it. He felt there was no difference no matter how he looked at it. When he tried to pour his spiritual aura into it, he suddenly thought of something. What's wrong? Tienga noticed his strange expression and hurriedly asked. She didn't answer immediately. After spending some effort to take back his spiritual aura, he said, Spirit-sucking powder can absorb spiritual aura, and primal chaos aura can dissolve everything. The combination of these two is simply a sharp defensive weapon. Tienga knocked the crystal and asked, You mean, it can be made into a defensive magic weapon? She nodded. Yes. We originally thought spirit-sucking powder would be the best to make a defensive magic weapon. Now, with the addition of primal chaos aura, the effect is more than doubled. Tienga thought for a while and said, I think it's good to make an offensive magic weapon. Oh. Tienga touched an ordinary magic weapon and threw it into the primal chaos aura. Soon, the magic weapon disappeared without a trace. She looked at it for a while and finally understood. You mean? Which magic weapon is so domineering? It's a pity not to attack. She stared at her for a long time and said, Tienga, you seem different from before. Different? Tienga raised her eyebrows in surprise. What's different? It seems a bit sharper, he said. He smiled as he recalled. In the past, you were mostly on the defensive, cautious, and advanced step by step. But now, you also have an indomitable momentum. Mo Tiange thought about it carefully. She seemed to be right, so she said with a smile, maybe I was influenced by you guys. Isn't this better? Qin, she answered with a smile. He looked at the crystal in his hand and thought for a while, then said, I really can't figure out how to refine this thing. How about I go to Kunzhong City? I can ask my senior martial brothers and sisters for advice and work together. In addition, I can also use the trade fair to communicate with other people. Maybe I can find other clues. Mo Tiange thought about it and agreed. With the transporting formation, it's enough for me and senior martial brother Lingxi to guard the sect. It shouldn't be a problem for you to go there for a month. Okay. Qin, she put away the crystal he condensed, took a tube of spirit-tempering water and a small amount of spirit-absorbing powder, and put them in his universe ring. I'll go now. So fast. Mo Tiange was surprised. Go early and come back early. Qin, she paused, then reminded her in a low voice, you have to pay more attention to Nia Wushang now. Her identity is sensitive, and it won't be good if it gets out. In addition, although your friendship with her isn't bad, she's a devil cultivator and also Master Song Feng's disciple. It's said that Master Song Feng's crazy and vengeful personality is also influenced by her cultivation technique. I'm really a bit worried. I know, Mo Tiange said rationally. I've long prepared for it. I arranged a lot of defensive formations in the stone room where she recuperated. Don't worry. Qin, she nodded and said no more. He put away the things, left the cave, and went to Kunzhong City. Chapter 660. 5 days later, Nia Wushang finally woke up. As soon as she woke up, she saw Mo Tiange sitting next to her. Tiange. Nia Wushang was relieved to see her. I'm finally alive. Mo Tiange saw that her face was still pale, so she asked with concern, are you okay? How could you be so rash as to go to Langtu Mountain alone? No matter how seriously injured Master Song Feng is, he's still a late-stage, nascent soul cultivator. Even my master might not be able to kill him. You're alone. Nia Wushang smiled and said, I'm afraid I don't have time. He doesn't have much lifespan left and his injuries are so serious. What if he dies before I act? Besides, I'm fine, aren't I? Fine. Mo Tiange snorted. You call this fine? Even with miraculous pills, it'll take at least 10 or 20 years for your injuries to heal. It's only 10 or 20 years. Nia Wushang was very calm. I'm not even 300 years old yet, so my lifespan is very long. What's the big deal if I only spend a few dozen years? You're really... Mo Tiange was speechless. All right. Seeing her unhappy expression, Nia Wushang smiled flatteringly and clasped her hands together. I'm still alive, so don't argue with me about this. By the way, don't you want to know how I defeated my master? She successfully aroused Mo Tiange's curiosity. Why? Nia Wushang said slowly, my master's cultivation level is profound and he's powerful. It's definitely impossible to defeat him head-on. However, he has a weakness, he once practiced the wrong cultivation technique. I remember you once told me that there was a person who looked very similar to my master after he cultivated. In fact, my master didn't cultivate primordial devil aura, but instead, he cultivated death aura. However, he was much smarter, so he discovered something was wrong and quickly comprehended the real cultivation technique. But his body was already damaged, and the death aura invaded his primordial spirit. So, with his current state, no matter how high his cultivation level was, he couldn't advance to the deification realm. The nascent soul was formed by the fusion of the golden core and part of the primordial spirit's power. However, the soul formation stage required the nascent soul to go through thousands of tempering and merge with the primordial spirit and the body. No matter which part of the nascent soul, primordial spirit and body, nothing could go wrong. For the corporeal body, even if it was damaged, it could be regenerated with the power of the nascent soul. However, if it was contaminated by impurities, it had to be removed. It was the same for the nascent soul. If it was contaminated by the death chi, it could never merge with the corporeal body and the nascent soul to advance to the deity transformation stage. Exactly. Nia Wushang nodded. You've also noticed, right? Could he still be considered a human? If it wasn't for his profound cultivation, he would have long been tortured into a corpse by the death chi. Mo Tiange recalled her behavior in Carefree Valley and suddenly understood. Back then, you used devil crystals to absorb dead aura just to deal with your master. Nia Wushang nodded then sighed. When I saw the magic crystal back then, I faintly felt that it would be a breakthrough. My master is too powerful. Ordinary methods can't deal with him at all. Only the devil crystals can absorb one's essence energy and have a unique effect. They're a completely different type of method, making it impossible for him to defend against them. Is it the death chi or the essence chi? Why don't I understand? Mo Tiange was a bit confused. Since he's plagued by the death chi is his greatest enemy, isn't it? Nia Wushang shook her head. The death chi is indeed his greatest enemy, but it's hard to see its effect in the short term. Besides, with his cultivation level, he can successfully suppress the death chi, so there's no way to take his life. Then I used the devil crystals to absorb the death chi for two reasons. One was to use the death chi to destroy the Immortal's cave's formation, and the other was to numb him. My master has seen a lot of death chi, so he didn't take it seriously and neglected the real effect of the devil crystals. His body was already weak, and his primordial spirit was trapped. He should have been a dead man long ago. This shows that his soul power is very weak, and he's only relying on his powerful cultivation level to support himself. I used the devil crystals to absorb his essence energy and disperse his soul power. That way, I could have won without a fight. Mo Tiange thought about what she said over and over again. Eventually, she sighed and said, "You've really racked your brains to make such a good move." Nia Wushang smiled bitterly. If it wasn't because I couldn't defeat him, why would I have to do this? I can only blame myself for being too weak. Blame yourself for having too little time. Mo Tiange shook her head and said, "With your qualifications, advancing to the late stage of the nascent soul realm is only a matter of time, and it's not impossible for you to advance to the deification realm. It's just that you're not sure he can wait until that moment." Yes. Nia Wushang looked a bit absent-minded. Master has lived for too long. The two of them looked at each other in silence. They only felt that time was passing. No matter how powerful a cultivator was, there would always be a moment when he or she would disappear, and the path to immortality was still far in the future. After a long time, Mo Tiange said, "What's your next plan?" Nia Wushang thought for a while then shook her head. "Nothing." Mo Tiange heaved a sigh. "How about, you stay here with me?" Nia Wushang was stunned and hastily waved her hand. "I'm a devil cultivator, and Xianqing School is a Dao school." I'm not asking you to join Xianqing School," Mo Tiange said with a smile. "In any case, I'm a nascent soul Lord Daoist now. It shouldn't be a problem for me to ask a friend to stay here for a long time, right?" Nia Wushang thought about it carefully. There were only a few places she could go. Yunzhong was in chaos. The current situation was confusing, and there were killings everywhere. Xiaoyang, this place was even more chaotic. Without strength, people could only be trampled on. In the Celestial Pole, she was Master Song Feng's disciple, so this matter wasn't difficult to investigate. Originally, Langtu Mountain was secretive enough, but now it was exposed. She was seriously injured and couldn't fight with others, so it was best for her to find a safe place to slowly recuperate. Thinking about it this way, Xianqing School was really the best choice. First of all, Xianqing School was very powerful now. Whether it was in the Celestial Pole or Yunzhong, no one would come to Xianqing School's encampment to cause trouble. Second, Mo Tiange was her most trusted friend. She saved her from danger many times, so there was no one more trustworthy than her in this world. Nia Wushang thought for a while. After confirming it, she agreed. Okay, thank you. Mo Tiange waved her hand. There's no need to thank me between us. She took out a jade talisman. You can recuperate here. If you need anything, use this talisman to inform the supervising disciples here. Nia Wushang took the jade talisman. Then I won't be polite. The two of them talked about their experiences in the past few years, as well as the problem of cultivating and recuperating before Mo Tiange left the stone room to let Nia Wushang rest. Qin Shi's trip took 2 months before he returned. As soon as he returned to his cave, Mo Tiange asked, "What took you so long? Do you have any clues?" Qin Shi said, "Nowadays, wars are frequent. I didn't go at the right time, and there aren't many cultivators in Kuanzhong City. Senior Marshal Brother Zhenyang said there would be a large-scale trade fair in a month or so he told me to wait. I thought Kuanzhong City was a trade city, so there might be some people with special abilities who knew something, so I agreed. In these 2 months, I collected some information. After Senior Marshal brothers and sisters came back, they also gave us a lot of ideas." As he said that, he took out a small bag and poured out many jade slips. After a rough look, there were about 30 to 50 of them. Mo Tiange was dumbfounded. Qin Shi smiled helplessly. Not all of them are real clues. I wrote down all the similar ones. He picked out one of the jade slips and said, "This is what Master and the others concluded after discussing for us to refer to." Mo Tiange looked at the jade slips one by one. After a long time, she finally finished reading them. She frowned slightly and said, "It takes time to experiment with these things. They can't be decided in a short time. And so we're busy." The two of them moved the things into the virtual sky world. Qin Shi asked, "Are you all right in these 2 months? How's Nia Wushang?" "She's recuperating, so I left her here." Mo Tiange roughly described their conversation and said, "I think she's clear-headed, so she should be fine." I also asked her, and she said the reason why Master Song Feng became like that was because he practiced that wrong cultivation technique. Since Great Primordial Devil technique was put together with the 5-spirit sacrifice temple, it must be a cultivation technique that far surpasses the present world, so it's impossible for it to have this kind of shortcoming. As long as you comprehend it correctly, there won't be any problems. That's good. He was just taking precautions. Since he left her here, he had to be on guard. Right, Jing Xingji is also in Kuanzhong City. He told me something. Oh. Mo Tiange was very interested in Jing Xingji's current situation. "What did Venerable Swordsman Stillwater say to you?" Qin Shi saw that she really wanted to laugh, so he said helplessly, "Don't laugh at him. He's already very serious now." "Very serious Jing Xingji." Mo Tiange nodded seriously, then burst out laughing again. It's so hard to imagine. When she was done laughing, Qin Shi said, "Jing Xingji told me he found clues about the Qilin." "Ha! Mo Tiange was surprised. So fast. What kind of clues? Where did he get them? She sat down at the table, fiddled with the jade slip, and asked, "Do you still remember the Qilin the Spirit Beast Sect's founder's mount?" "Of course I remember. Spirit Beast Sect uses the Qilin as their sect's emblem. All the cultivators in the Celestial Pole knew about this." Jing Xingji said he accidentally found records about the Spirit Beast Sect's founder's mount in the sect's library. On a whim, he looked for Hua Lingyun from Spirit Beast Sect and asked for some information. Mo Tiange said with surprise, "How could they easily tell others about the founder's mount?" Was Jing Xingji deceived? Qin Shi smiled faintly. "I don't think so. He paid a price that Hua Lingyun couldn't refuse." "What was it?" "The white tiger's breath in his hand," Qin Shi said. He showed Hua Lingyun the white tiger's sword and gave him some of the white tiger's breath. Mo Tiange nodded thoughtfully. For Spirit Beast Sect, this is really an irresistible temptation. Who said it wasn't? Hua Lingyun told him the origin of the Qilin mount in detail on the spot, then went back to closed-door meditation. Mo Tiange laughed, then grabbed him and asked, "Does this Qilin have anything to do with the Qilin we're looking for?" Jing Xingji speculated that it should. Should? Qin Shi shook his head gently. There's still too little information. Moreover, the world changed not long ago, so many descriptions can't be accurate anymore. We need more time to confirm. Mo Tiange breathed a sigh of relief. There's no hurry. Wushang still needs a long time to heal. Quickly tell me, where did the Spirit Beast Sect's Qilin come from? Qin Shi took a sip of tea, then said, "Neither too fast nor too slow, in Yunzhong." Ha! This location gave Mo Tiange a headache. Do we have to go to Yunzhong? Chapter 661. To put it bluntly, Yunzhong was full of enemies. During the Black Tortoise incident last time, all the cultivators in Yunzhong stood against them. It was hard to find someone who didn't have a grudge against them. "It's in the original Yunzhong," Qin Shi said calmly. After the world changed, Spirit Beast Sect sent people to investigate. It's not in the place described in the ancient records, so Jing Xingji suspects that the world changed the location of Qilin. After a pause, he smiled and said, "There's no hurry. Even if we have a clue, it'll take a long time to investigate. Besides, the clue is so simple." Jing Xingji also said that according to the ancient records of Spirit Beast Sect, this place has a strong aura of divine beasts, but the founder of Spirit Beast Sect didn't see the sacrificial temple, so he can't be sure it's the Qilin sacrificial temple we're looking for. Mo Tiange nodded. That's right. If the Qilin sacrificial temple was so easy to find, it wouldn't have been undiscovered for so many years. Did Jing Xingji say how to investigate next? Do you need our help? Qin Shi shook his head. He said he'll take care of this. Take care of it. Mo Tiange smiled. Poor child, you've never experienced the power of a nascent soul venerable swordsman, right? Exactly. Qin Shi also smiled. This is good. We have time to refine magic weapons. Mo Tiange agreed. It's best if we succeed before we find the Qilin sacrificial temple. After that, the two of them devoted themselves to refining magic weapons. First, they sorted out the clues they collected one by one, discarding the useless ones and keeping the useful ones. Then they analyzed and experimented with the suggestions of the nascent soul lord Taoists. This was easy to say but difficult to do. The primal chaos aura and spirit-absorbing powder were too mysterious and difficult to make progress. In the end, the two of them had to give up and concentrate on understanding the material of the primal chaos crystal. This was the simplest and stupidest method. With the development of tool refining, there were many ways to identify materials. Tool refiners usually used these methods to identify materials before starting to refine tools. Not only did it require enough perception, but it also required a lot of time. Usually, an ordinary material would take a few months to understand, and the rarer ones might even take a few years. The primal chaos crystal obviously belonged to the latter. The two of them had no choice. For this kind of supreme material, refining methods were completely useless. Time flowed by quickly like water. Nia Wushang was recuperating, Jing Xingji was investigating the Qilin sacrificial temple, and Mo Tiange and Qin Shi were refining magic weapons. Everyone was concentrating on doing their own things. 10 years later, the Immortal Alliance finally defeated the demon cultivators and began to recuperate. Xinjiang, Miaoyi, and Xianyin returned to their sects, leaving Jinghe and Huayan to guard Kuanzhong City. Next, everyone either cultivated or traveled. The Celestial Pole faction was peaceful. Mo Tiange couldn't help but wonder whether her deduction of the world in chaos was wrong or not. Of course, in the depths of her heart, she hoped that she was wrong. The end of the human world and the extinction of humanity was something that no one liked. In the past few years, Xianqing School's development speed had shocked the entire Celestial Pole. With enough medicinal pills, the number of core formation disciples soared. Every few dozen years, someone would form their gold core. Right now, the number of core formation cultivators at Xianqing School was number 1 in the Celestial Pole, and it was difficult to surpass them. Under them were Yizhenji, Shui Linbue, and Sang Yushu, 3 core formation disciples. Although Yizhenji's spiritual root was ordinary, his comprehension wasn't bad, and he had been taught by them since he was a child. As long as he broke through his mental state, with the help of spiritual herbs, it wouldn't be difficult for him to form his gold core. Shui Linbue's spiritual root could be considered poor. Fortunately, she had a firm heart, so she could reach the foundation-building realm. Logically speaking, the possibility of her forming her gold core was almost zero. For the sake of Shui Linbue's conscientiousness in taking care of the cave for so many years, Mo Tiange used medicinal pills to help her advance to the core formation realm, which could be regarded as helping Shui Linbue and Yizhenji. However, her cultivation path was almost over. As for Sang Yushu, except for her poor spiritual root, she had no shortcomings in other aspects. With Qin Shi's guidance, after so many years of accumulation, forming her gold core could be said to be a matter of course. Qin Shi even thought he had a chance to enter the nascent soul realm. As for the others, Yi Wen and Shi Su, they weren't Mo Tiange's real disciples. Their strengths weren't cultivation, they just went with the flow. Xie Xingyi and Qi Yunshu had good conditions in all aspects, but they were still young. If they wanted to form their gold core, it would take at least several decades of tempering. In recent years, the most dazzling star in Xianqing School was Mo Xiaoyang, the disciple accepted by Lord Daoist Lingxi. Because Mo Tiange saved his life, he changed his surname to Mo. After being accepted as Lord Daoist Lingxi's disciple for more than 30 years, he formed his gold core at the age of 80. He was only a little later than Qin Shi and a little earlier than Mo Tiange. For a time, Mo Xiaoyang seemed to have become a genius of the new generation in Xianqing School. He was often mentioned and even compared to Mo Tiange and Qin Shi. Mo Tiange felt this wasn't a good sign. It wasn't good to blindly pursue speed in cultivation. Besides, such comments were tantamount to praising someone to death. She specifically mentioned this to Qin Shi. Qin Shi deeply agreed and found an opportunity to hint a few words to Lord Daoist Lingxi. How could Lord Daoist Lingxi not know? He said he was prepared, so the two of them didn't say anything more. In any case, Mo Xiaoyang was Lord Daoist Lingxi's disciple, so it wasn't good for them to meddle too much. Besides, they also had their own disciples. It was just that Imo Xiaoliang was brought into Xianqing school by them, so he had karma with them, so they were more concerned about him. After more than 30 years, Nia Wushang's injuries were finally completely healed, and even the hidden dangers were removed. They also had a preliminary understanding of the materials of chaos crystals and started to refine magic weapons. At this time, Jing Xingji suddenly came to visit them. After returning from Yunzhong, Jing Xingji returned to Gujin sect. In the past few decades, they only met once when Qin Shi went to Kuanzhong City. At other times, they communicated through summoning talismans. Mo Tiange was very uncomfortable to suddenly see Jing Xingji. Jing Xingji was wearing the cyan sword robe of Gujin sect's nascent soul venerable swordsman. The patterns on it were complicated and showed his nobility. His hair was tied neatly in a crown. As soon as he entered Mount Taikang, he pretended to greet them. "Fellow Taoists, long time no see. How have you been?" Mo Tiange simply couldn't look at Jing Xingji like this. In the end, Qin Shi was calm. He casually said, "Fellow Taoist, you're still as elegant as ever." He then welcomed Jing Xingji into his cave. Nia Wushang was stunned when she saw him. She then said rudely, "Why are you so stubborn?" Jing Xingji's face instantly darkened. Mo Tiange held back her laughter and tried to smooth things over. All right. We haven't seen each other for so many years. Let's be more friendly. You're the first one who wants to laugh." Jing Xingji didn't appreciate it at all and glared at her fiercely. Mo Tiange spread her hands to express her innocence, but the corners of her mouth kept rising. Jing Xingji sighed again. "I have no choice." Although Martial Uncle Yuaning didn't say it, he doesn't like frivolous people. Alas, returning to the sect really isn't free. You finally know you're frivolous. Nia Wushang made sarcastic remarks on the side. Seeing that Jing Xingji's face was about to completely darken, Mo Tiange hurriedly said, "That's enough. Wushang, don't provoke him. Fellow Taoist Jing, you didn't come to bicker, did you?" "Of course not." Jing Xingji said sternly, "I came because I got some definite news about the Qilin." It had been more than 30 years since they first found clues about the Qilin. During these 30 years, Jing Xingji would send some news from time to time. In the beginning, he also sent people to Yunzhong to search. However, they weren't looking for the sacrificial temple, they were looking for the traces of the Spirit Beast sect's founder. According to the ancient records of the Spirit Beast sect, the founder once traveled the world. When he passed by a place, he obtained a spiritual beast similar to the Qilin. According to Hua Lingyun, this wasn't a real Qilin, but a descendant of a divine beast with the Qilin's bloodline. Gujin sect disciples went deep into Yunzhong and inquired about the legends of various places. Then, they combined it with the records of the Spirit Beast sect to find useful information and confirmed that there used to be a strong Qilin's aura in a certain place in Yunzhong. That Qilin mount was born there. However, this Qilin's aura gradually disappeared over the years. By the time the world changed, it had completely disappeared. The clues were cut off. Helpless, Jing Xingji tried to bribe Hua Lingyun again. This time, he only got some fragmented information. No matter how he investigated, he couldn't find anything. Venerable swordsman Yuaning told him that the Qilin was the symbol of the Spirit Beast sect. If they wanted to find it, they would have found it long ago. It was only because they couldn't find it that Hua Lingyun told him this information so bluntly. When Jing Xingji heard this, he almost carried his sword and went to the Spirit Beast sect to cause trouble. It took him a lot of effort to restrain himself. What happened next? What did you find? This time, I didn't find it. I deduced it. Jing Xingji had a complacent look on his face. With a wave of his sleeve, virtual images of maps of various continents appeared in front of the four people. Look, these are the current locations of the continents. Let's mark the 4 spirits' sacrificial temple on them. He flicked his finger. First, 2 gold and black dots appeared in the westernmost Fengsha city and the northern part of Yunzhong. These are the locations of the sacrificial temples that we can confirm at the moment: White Tiger and Black Tortoise. He flicked his finger again. 2 green and red dots lit up in the easternmost Fengsha city and the southern part of Yunzhong. The Azure Dragon is in the Eastern Sea, and the Vermilion Bird is in the Sea of Returning Ruins, right? Everyone nodded. They didn't understand what he meant. Jing Xingji smiled mysteriously. But have you thought about it? The Eastern Sea and the Sea of Returning Ruins might not have moved with the continents. Everyone was stunned. Mo Tiange stared at the virtual map and looked at the locations of the Eastern Sea and the Sea of Returning Ruins. She suddenly stood up in astonishment. So that's how it is. Jing Xingji held his teacup and nodded complacently. That's how it is. Mo Tiange swiped her finger. The red dot in the southern part of Yunzhong moved down and stopped at the current location of Yuanzhou. The green dot in the easternmost part of the celestial pole went all the way east. The 4 dots stopped. Although they weren't symmetrical, they were clearly divided into north, south, east, and west. See? Jing Xingji said, north, south, east, and west coincide with the Azure Dragon in the east, the Vermilion Bird in the south, the White Tiger in the west, and the Black Tortoise in the north. Qin Shi's gaze moved and stopped in the middle. Since they all coincide, how could the Qilin be an exception? It's naturally in the middle. The yellow dot moved slowly and finally stopped in the middle, Xiaoyang. After realizing this, I took the map from before the world changed and compared it with it. Take a look again. Jing Xingji turned his palm, and a map with a slightly different color slowly overlapped with the virtual map. The yellow dot representing the Qilin appeared in the western part of the clouds. See? Jing Xingji smiled. This is the location where the founder of Spirit Beast sect obtained the Qilin. So that's how it is. Mo Tiange sat back down and calmed herself down. So, the Qilin is in the current Xiaoyang. Yes, but also no. Jing Xingji withdrew the virtual map and drank slowly for a while. After enjoying the feeling of being a master enough, he said, look, the White Tiger and the Black Tortoise on the continent have all moved with the continent. The Azure Dragon and the Vermilion Bird haven't moved because they're actually on the sea. What about the Qilin? Look at the map. It's obviously always been on the continent. Why? Nia Wushang thought for a while, then said, the founder of Spirit Beast sect didn't really see the Qilin. What he saw was only the Qilin's breath. Maybe the Qilin isn't on the continent at all. Jing Xingji just wanted to pretend to be a master, but Nia Wushang ruined it. He said very reluctantly, yes, I sent people to Xiaoyang. Sure enough, they didn't find any trace of the Qilin on the continent until they reached the bottom of the sea. Chapter 662. Now that they'd found the Qilin sacrificial temple, it was time to leave. Both Mo Tiange and Qin Shi thought they'd figured out how to refine the chaos crystal, so they should refine the magic weapon first. Nia Wushang said she wanted to go to Langtu Mountain to find what Master Song Feng left behind. Jing Xingji didn't have much to do, so he took over the task of contacting Yang Qingji and Ling Yunhe. The 4 of them went their separate ways and agreed to go to Xiaoyang together after the matter was finished. The refining process of the chaos crystal wasn't smooth. Perhaps because the primal chaos aura was too mysterious, the chaos crystal shattered from time to time during the refining process, causing a huge consumption of spirit-absorbing powder. The magic weapon had just taken shape when it was used up. After a discussion, the two of them decided to go to Fallen God Abyss again to collect spirit-absorbing powder. They'd been there once, so they were familiar with the route this time. Fallen God Abyss was still the same. There were yellow rocks everywhere, and not even a blade of grass grew. Gales swept by with great power. They came down from Fallen God Abyss and were still sucked into the vortex, but this time, they were prepared, so they weren't affected much. Along the canyon, they slowly entered the cave where they found the spirit-absorbing powder and used spirit-quenching water to extract the powder from the bluish-gray rocks. The larger pieces were the size of a finger and looked like milky white jade, while the smaller pieces were like powder. The two of them spent several days and almost melted the entire mountain wall. Enchanting suddenly stopped. "Come and see." Upon hearing this, she turned around to look. There was a trace of metal in the depths of the mountain wall, but he couldn't tell what kind of metal it was. "What's this?" She touched it. "Let's see." "Okay." Enchanting entered the virtual sky world, took out a large bucket of spirit-quenching water, and poured it on the stone wall without hesitation. Under the effect of the spirit-quenching water, all the spirit-absorbing powder was collected into their bags. Finally, a round object fell down. This object was about 3 feet in diameter and was dark in color. One side was a round frame, the other side was slightly bulging like a turtle shell, and the bottom was a twig-like base. She turned it over, brushed off the dust on it, and saw that the bulging side was engraved with extremely complicated patterns. Enchanting stared at them for a while. She felt these patterns were extremely profound and seemed to contain endless changes. Yin and Yang, the 5 elements, life and death, and even the myriad of the mortal world, innumerable karma. Tiange. A heavy shout rang in her ears, causing her to wake up with a start. "What's going on?" She asked. Enchanting touched her chest with lingering fear and said, "This thing is terrible. It definitely doesn't belong to our world." "Oh." She took a careful look. Although he also felt it was mysterious, his feelings weren't as deep as hers. Enchanting pointed at the patterns and explained, "Look, these patterns contain Yin and Yang, the 5 elements, karma, the world of mortals, and even the 6 paths of reincarnation." As she explained them one by one, She's expression became more and more solemn. "It's actually so mysterious. You don't know much about formations, so your understanding isn't as deep as mine. I'm sure that even in the ancient times, there wouldn't be such a mysterious item. It must be an item of immortals or even gods." Enchanting's tone was resolute and decisive. Her formations were inherited from the Xuanji Formation Book and Mo Yao Qing. Both of them were the peak of formations in the present world. There were also many books from the distant past era and even the virtual sky world. It could be said that she was the person who had the most understanding of ancient formations in the present world. She was sure that these patterns weren't the work of cultivators. At the very least, they were an item of immortals. She recalled the legend of the fallen god Abyss and said in a low voice, 2 deities fought in the westernmost area. One of them hacked down with his sword and formed the fallen god Abyss. I'm afraid the deities in the westernmost legend weren't cultivators but real immortals. As long as humans don't go extinct, the things that happened in the past will be passed down to the world through all kinds of legends." Enchanting stared at the things on the ground for a long time and said, "Look, doesn't this look like a mirror?" She nodded and suddenly smiled. "It's just a bit too big. This is clearly a hand mirror. How big would a person have to be to use such a mirror?" Enchanting smiled. "Since it's a magic weapon, it can naturally be as big as one wants. This mirror must have been damaged during the fight, so it maintained its size during the fight." She naturally knew this, but he was just joking. After joking, he muttered, it seems that the fallen god Abyss is really the battlefield of two immortals. The so-called spirit-sucking powder is actually the material of this magic weapon. Yes. No wonder we couldn't find spirit-sucking powder even after searching through ancient books and records. It turns out it's from an immortal's magic weapon. As she spoke, Mo Tiange's imagination ran wild. Since this is the place where immortals fought, could there be other treasures? Quick, let's go look for them. She pulled Qin Shi and wanted to dig 3 feet into the ground. Qin Shi laughed. What do you think an immortal's magic weapon is? Is it everywhere? Just look for it. It's not like we'll lose anything. All right. It was indeed a pity to let go of this opportunity. The fallen god Abyss was full of strange gales, and they couldn't use their divine sense to the fullest. Apart from digging 3 feet into the ground, there seemed to be no other way. Mo Tiange simply released the 4 spiritual beasts and the stone from the virtual sky world. Dig? The 4 spiritual beasts all had different expressions when they heard that. Xiaofeng reacted quickly and immediately said, "Then I'll go over there." Xiaofan answered obediently, "Oh, then where should I dig?" Fei Fei's expression darkened. He looked at Xiaofeng and then at Xiaofan, but in the end, he restrained himself and said, "Stone, let's go." Since the spiritual beasts transformed one after another, he had lost his unique overlord status. Fortunately, he had stone. No matter what he did, stone would always be his staunchest supporter. Xiaohua said, "Master, I can't do this kind of thing. Why don't you let me follow you?" Its black eyes moved back and forth with a pleading look on its face. Mo Tiange's eyebrows twitched and she said, "Follow Xiaofeng. Remember, listen to Xiaofeng." Oh. Xiaohua's expression darkened. While she wasn't paying attention, it rolled its eyes at Xiaofeng and said, "Let's go." Xiaofeng smiled and pretended not to see it. She led Xiaohua away, but when she turned around, her hands were clenched. How could Mo Tiange not know about the turbulent undercurrents among spiritual beasts? Xiaohua liked to play, but Xiaofeng always disciplined it. Therefore, after Xiaofeng transformed into a human being in the 8th rank, Xiaohua would trip her up from time to time. Unfortunately, her level was too low, so she couldn't play against Xiaofeng. It was foreseeable that when she came back later, she would cry and complain again. "Xiaofan, follow us." Oh. In comparison, Xiaofan was an obedient child who did what she said. The 2 of them and 4 spiritual beasts, no, 5 of them. They scraped the ground of all the places they could go in the fallen god Abyss, but they didn't find any magic weapons. They only found some traces of fights of magical powers. "Tiange, don't you think something's wrong?" Mo Tiange didn't understand what he meant. "Am I? What's wrong?" Qin Shi thought for a while then shook his head. "Maybe it's just an illusion. I always feel that this place is too clean. Except for this magic weapon embedded in the mountain wall, there's nothing else left." "Do you mean someone else came here?" "It's hard to say." Qin Shi couldn't figure it out, so he didn't mention it. "Forget it. Even if there was, we can't trace it. Let's go back." They recalled all the spiritual beasts into the virtual sky world and set off for Xianqing School. A few days ago, Nia Wuxiang came back from Mount Lang Tuesday. She said she had a great harvest and wanted to enter closed-door meditation to prepare some life-saving techniques. Yang Qingji and Ling Yun had just got in touch and said they would come back after some time. This just happened to give them time to refine their magic treasures. The 2 of them didn't delay and also entered closed-door meditation to refine magic weapons without stopping. This time, it went smoothly. With enough spirit-absorbing powder and the pattern on the mirror frame, Mo Tiange was inspired a lot. After several months, the new magic weapon was finally produced. After testing it in the virtual sky world, the two of them were very satisfied with the new magic weapon. It could attack and defend, was invisible and intangible, and was impossible to guard against. Based on the material, this magic weapon could be regarded as a top magic weapon in the world. This treasure matches your fighting style very well. With this treasure, your strength won't be inferior to mine. She put the magic weapon named Chaotic Heavenly Transformation Box in her hand. Mo Tiange wasn't polite. She knew her advancement to the middle stage was simply because she took advantage of Hupe, so her strength didn't improve much. In terms of cultivation level, she was now in the same realm as Qin Shi, but in a fight of magical powers, she was inferior to him. Moreover, Qin Shi had always been focused. For him, the vermilion bird bow was enough. More magic weapons would only distract him. When they came out of closed-door meditation, Gujin's sect sent news that Yang Qingji and Ling Yunhe had arrived. Mo Tiange and Qin Shi immediately went to Lord Daoist Jinyang's Immortal's cave to inform him. They had mentioned this before, so Lord Daoist Jinyang already knew about it. He said, Shoujing, Qingwei, when you went to Yunzhong, the sect couldn't spare any manpower. Now that the situation is good, I want Lingxi to go with you. Are you willing? Of course, Qin Shi said, our trip isn't treasure hunting. The more manpower, the better. Lord Daoist Jinyang nodded. In fact, I'm a bit worried about the three of you going, but Xianyin and Miaoyi have been busy with the sect for decades and are now in closed-door meditation, so I can't disturb them. Lingxi is on the verge of a breakthrough. It'll be good for him to go with you. Qin Shi bowed. Yes, we'll definitely work together with junior martial brother Lingxi and watch out for each other. Lord Daoist Jinyang smiled gently. In the tens of thousands of years since our sect was established, our Xianqing school may not be the strongest, but we've always been the most harmonious. This is the foundation of our sect, so I believe you'll all return safely. After encouraging them, Lord Daoist Jinyang said, Junior martial brothers Jing and Huayan brought back some things from Kuanzhong City. In addition, I also have something for you. He then gave them a Qinkuan bag. Qin Shi took it, looked at it, and said in surprise, Senior martial brother Jinyang, take it with ease. Lord Daoist Jinyang looked at them with a smile. You're the hope of the new generation of Xianqing school. You've sacrificed so much for the future of the sect, so it's worth it. Yes. Out of thousands of words, he finally said, we'll all return safely. Chapter 663. Several days later, Mo Tiange, Qin Shi, Nia Wushang, and Lord Daoist Lingxi left Mount Taikang and went to Gujin sect. For nascent soul cultivators came to visit at the same time, which shocked the Gujin sect disciple so much that his eyes almost fell out. He hurriedly went to report, and Jing Xingji didn't delay and immediately welcomed them in. Compared to Mount Taikang, Gujin sect's encampment was much steeper, and Jing Xingji's cave was even more so. This fellow chose a lone peak as his abode, and it was a direct path that was utterly impossible for anyone to live in. He lived alone at the peak of the mountain, and he only left 2 managing disciples to take care of it, causing him to seem cold, aloof, and have the bearing of an expert. Mo Tiange clicked her tongue in admiration. Living alone on a peak. Gujin sect is really generous. Jing Xingji pouted. That's where they're generous. He was referring to the peak at the back, which was the highest peak of Gujin sect. Compared to this lone peak, that peak was more imposing and had better scenery. Although it was Mo Tiange's first time here, she knew it was where Venerable Swordsman Yuanning's cave was. She smiled and said, Senior Yuanning is obviously training you as her successor. Won't it be yours in the future? Upon hearing that, Jing Xingji hurriedly waved his hand. Don't talk nonsense. I still have 2 senior martial brothers in my sect. He looked very humble. Mo Tiange and Nia Wushang rolled their eyes. Qin Shi couldn't help but smile. Fellow Daoist Jing, when did you become so cautious? I've always been cautious, okay. Jing Xingji also rolled his eyes. In fact, before he left Gujin sect, he had always been cautious in the sect. People from Venerable Swordsman Fulling sect were always watching him. If he wasn't cautious, he would be caught. It was just that he had a cynical nature, so after leaving Gujin sect, he inevitably became a bit dissolute. When they entered the cave, Ling Yunhe and Yang Qingji were already waiting for them. They greeted each other and sat down. They hadn't seen each other for dozens of years, but both of them had advanced to the middle stage. Mo Tiange looked them up and down. Yang Qingji was as silent as ever and couldn't see anything. Ling Yunhe looked less gloomy, seeming to have been living well these years. Ling Yunhe looked at them and said with a smile, I really couldn't tell in the past, but not only do fellow Taoists Qin and Mo come from famous cultivation groups, fellow Taoist Jing is also extraordinary, and fellow Taoist Yang is the successor of the #1 cultivator in the Celestial Pole. What's wrong with you cultivators of the Celestial Pole? All of you ran to Yunzhong, making us Yunzhong cultivators feel ashamed. Mo Tiange shook the teacup in her hand. Fellow Daoist Ling, what are you talking about? Could it be that your Yunzhong doesn't have any talented cultivators? Even the 2 of you are not older than us when you formed your nascent soul. Among the 7 people present, Qin Shi, Jing Xingji, and Lord Daoist Lingxi were slightly older, Ling Yunhe and Nia Wushang were in the middle, and Yang Qingji and Mo Tiange were the youngest. For nascent soul cultivators, being over 100 years old wasn't even worth mentioning. Among them, Qin Shi, who advanced to the nascent soul realm the earliest, was only 100 years old. Now, just like them, he was in the middle stage of the nascent soul realm. What are you talking about? You're the youngest among us to form our nascent soul. Are you trying to provoke us? Ling Yan said half-jokingly. Mo Tiange smiled and waved her hand to beg for mercy. Okay, I said something wrong, okay. After chatting for a while, Jing Xingji got to the point. Fellow Taoists, it wasn't convenient to communicate before, so I didn't tell you about the Qilin sacrificial temple in detail. Now that everyone is here, I'll tell you about the location and situation of the sacrificial temple. He took out several jade slips, 1 for each person, and gave them to them. This is a map. We'll have a long way to go, and there'll be many dangers. If we get separated, we'll go there by ourselves. We won't waste our time waiting for anyone, so we have to be careful. No one had any objections. They all knew the current situation of Shaoyang. Yunzhong moved northward. Shaoyang was surrounded by a vast sea, and the north was connected to the former South Sea of the Celestial Pole, which was extremely dangerous. Jing Xingji found out that the Qilin sacrificial temple was in Shaoyang, but the location was a bit off. As for where it was, they had to search carefully. If it went missing on the sea, how could other people find it? Lord Daoist Lingxi probed with her divine sense and found a clear map drawn in the jade slip. Several points were marked on it, and they were the places where Gujin sect disciples found the Qilin's breath. The experiences and deductions of many disciples were recorded densely on the side, and it was extremely detailed. His heart stirred slightly, and he sent a voice transmission to Qin Shi, senior martial brother Shoujing. This map is too detailed. Who exactly is this fellow Daoist Jing? When going on a joint expedition, the person in charge would usually keep some important information, but the level of detail on this map was far beyond what they could tell their companions. It seemed to be all the information Gujin sect disciples found. Qin Shi smiled and said, "Rest assured, this information is all true." Lord Daoist Lingxi didn't ask any more questions, but he had a different attitude towards Jing Xingji. It seemed that this venerable swordsman Jing of Stillwater and senior martial brother Shoujing trusted each other to an unusual degree. As you can see, we can only confirm that the Qilin is at the bottom of Shaoyang Sea, but the location is a bit off. That sea area is unimaginably dangerous. Core formation disciples can't explore it, so we can only do it ourselves. Ling Yun had cupped his hands and thanked him sincerely. Fellow Daoist Jing, this information has saved us a lot of effort. It's all thanks to you that we can find out the location of the Qilin sacrificial temple. Jing Xingji waved his hand. Don't mention it. I've always reaped the fruits of others' labor. Now that I have the ability, I should do my best. Okay, I've said what I wanted to say. Do you have anything else to add? No one spoke. Qin Shi said, I have one thing to ask. He pointed at Lord Daoist Lingxi next to him. My junior martial brother will also go to Shaoyang. Does anyone have any objections? Although he said, everyone, he was actually asking about Yang Qingji and Ling Yunhe. They brought Lord Daoist Lingxi here, and Jing Xingji didn't hide anything, so how could the two of them not know? Now that Qin Shi told him frankly, Ling Yunhe said, we're not going to fight for treasures. If fellow Daoist Lingxi is willing to go with us, I'm more than happy to. Yang Qingji only said 3 simple words, I have no objections. Qin Shi smiled and said, similarly, if you have someone to go with you, you can come with us. They looked at each other. Jing Xingji was the first to shake his head. Guzhen sect isn't like Xianqing school. My martial uncle Yuanying has to oversee the sect, and one of the 2 remaining senior martial brothers has to go to Kuanzhong City. We don't have enough manpower. Then he looked at Ling Yunhe. Ling Yunhe smiled bitterly. Although I've regained martial uncle Yuanmu's favor, he still doesn't believe this matter. Besides, Yunzhong has been in chaos these years, and Zhuyan's sect is short of manpower. I was able to leave because martial uncle Yuanmu gave me special authority. As for Yang Qingji, he didn't need to say anything. Does this guy have other friends? Then it's settled. As the host, Jing Xingji made the decision. If there's nothing else, we'll leave tomorrow. No one had any objections. They were already prepared to meet here. The next day, before leaving, Jing Xingji went to bid farewell to venerable swordsman Yuanying, and Mo Tiange and the others also greeted him. Venerable swordsman Yuanying didn't say much. It was impossible for Jing Xingji to hide this from him. He already said what he should say and do, so he just said a few words and told the disciples to send them off. After leaving Guzhen sect, Ling Yunhe sighed. In the past, the cultivators of Yunzhong always thought Yunzhong was ranked first. The outer seas, whether it was Yuanzhou, Shaoyang, or the celestial pole across the ocean, they couldn't compare to Yunzhong. Now that I think about it, they were really ignorant and arrogant. The celestial pole has geniuses like you and a senior like venerable swordsman Yuanying. Even if they don't have enough people, they're not worse than Yunzhong. Mo Tiange joked. Fellow Daoist Ling, when you went to Xianqing school, why didn't you sigh like this? Is Xianqing school not as good as Guzhen sect? Ling Yunhe shook his head with a smile. No. Xianqing school is indeed powerful and only lacks in number of nascent soul cultivators compared to Zhuyan sect. However, Xianqing school's cultivators have never exceeded what I've seen. As for Guzhen sect, fellow Daoist Jing Sr. is completely different from the cultivators of Yunzhong. Oh. Jing Xingji was curious. May I know what's different about martial uncle Yuanying? Ling Yun has said, although Yunzhong doesn't have a powerful sword cultivation group like Guzhen sect, it also has a lot of sword cultivators. The cultivation path of sword cultivators is nothing more than one sword to break 10,000 laws, and once the sword is drawn, there's no turning back. This senior Yuanying is different. He has the spirit of a sword cultivator, but he also has the breadth of mind of a Dao cultivator. In the current cultivation world, sword cultivators only remember to cultivate the sword, but how many people remember that the reason why sword cultivators are different from martial cultivators is because sword cultivators have Taoism as their foundation. Even fellow Daoist Jing, aside from tempering your mental state, you don't attach too much importance to your Tao foundation, right? At first, he was just curious, but as he listened, Jing Xingji's expression became serious. This was an evaluation of sword cultivators he'd never heard before. To put it bluntly, sword cultivators nowadays are too obsessed with power, so they've become a side path. As for this senior Yuanying, he's crazy about swords, but he's more tolerant. This is something that all the sword cultivators in the world, including fellow Daoist Jing, can't compare to. Yes, Jing Xingji couldn't help but say, everyone in the celestial pole knows that martial uncle Yuanying is upright and never biased. Even when I wasn't willing to return to Gujin sect, he could still casually give me a huge fated chance. This kind of breadth of mind is indeed unparalleled. Of course, this is just my personal opinion. Fellow Daoist Jing, you don't have to believe everything, Ling Yunhe added. At this moment, Jing Xingji was overwhelmed with emotions. How could he really not believe it? Ling Yunhe's words seemed to have opened a new door for him, letting him know that there was another way to walk the path of a sword cultivator, and this example was right beside him. Aside from Jing Xingji thinking hard along the way, the group of 7 of them flew to the small town where the long-distance transporting formation was located and used it to go to Yunzhong. Then, Ling Yunhe showed up and teleported from Nanzhou to a small island in the boundless sea. Back then, when the continents changed their positions, the transporting formation between Yunzhong and Shaoyang couldn't be used anymore. There was also the South Sea of the Celestial Pole in between, so it was extremely dangerous. Later on, a nascent soul cultivator bypassed the South Sea of the Celestial Pole from the east and spent several years to find a relatively safe small island near Shaoyang. He re-established the transporting formation there and only then was he able to get in touch with Shaoyang. Furthermore, he even used this opportunity to restore contact with Yuanzhou. Nia Wushang had walked this path before. Once they arrived at the island, she said, "I'll lead the way." You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.